Surrounded by bottles tonight. Bit of a bottle storm. One of those vPubs where we're going to be kind of open up on the what recommendations, things like that. Good, really interesting, hopefully, discussion points based on a vPub that we put out there back in January 2023. So a wee bit over 2 years ago, we put together a selection of whiskies, one from all of the individual Scotch whisky producing regions. But we were focused on trying to put together a collection for whisky geeks, higher ABV, as natural presentation as possible, but we were very, very focused on price. Price was a huge issue back then, and it remains an issue today. We targeted £249, and I slashed that down to £199 to see if it would be possible, and we, believe it or not, we achieved it. Maybe link to that vPub below if you want to go back and see that session from a couple of years ago. However, what I'm going to do tonight is the exact same thing, but open it up a little bit. What I want to do is try and get a handle on what does it actually cost if the shackles are removed? What if we walked into an imaginary retailer today in 2025 and they had all the core expressions on the shelf from all the distilleries? What would we buy and how much would it cost? That's the focus. Got a lot of bottles to share with you tonight, a lot of things to talk about. I'm looking forward to it, and I'll see you in a second. Hello, whisky folk. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the vPub. Welcome to another Thursday night. Hope you're all doing very, very well. I don't want to have this bottle on screen. I'm going to keep it just out of shot. That's really difficult to do, isn't it? I'll just do it quickly. Yeah, you didn't see anything. Listen, I'm pouring that. It's not going to feature until much, much, much later tonight. But I'm pouring it just because I think it's a good wee dram to get reacquainted with. Certainly alongside the one I've started with tonight, and just kind of remind myself about the differences between the two. It's not going to be the focus tonight, but I've got a second dram ready. Throughout all the bottles that I'm sharing with you tonight, I'm not going to be sipping them all, don't worry. I'm just kind of going to be holding them up as prompts and putting them off to the side, or the majority of them off to the side here, as a representation of each of our kind of pre-selected, I say us, but of course tonight I'm talking about myself, for 3 separate lists of whiskies that I believe that whiskey enthusiasts, whiskey botherers, whiskey geeks, whiskey aficionados, whiskey connoisseurs, whatever you want to call yourselves, however you identify in your whiskey life, the type of whiskies that you would potentially be walking into a shop, hopefully finding and picking up if they were there. But of course, when we remove the shackles, we get a wee bit carried away in these imaginary scenarios, and we can quite easily forget about how much these things are actually costing. So once we've kind of done our wee exercise, what we're going to do after each of the lists is focus on the total cost and the average price per bottle if we wanted to go about things in these 3 separate ways. We're going to compare that to what we were focused on in 2023 and see where we end up. Throughout tonight, that should give us well in excess of 20 bottles of whiskey that are core range, widely available, not all the time, of course. There's an imaginary scenario here. Some of these will be tricky to get your hands on, but in our imaginary scenario, we've got a fully stocked specialist retailer with all the official bottles, all the core range stuff available all of the time. So, you know, the prices can get a wee bit chunky. Some of the bottles might be a wee bit obscure. And of course, every single vPub that I ever do, I have to remember to caveat with the idea that your mileage will vary. It depends on where you are in the world. That affects what you get. It certainly affects how much you pay for it. It affects lots and lots of things. I can only really do things from my perspective here in the UK. However, I hope that wherever you are on the planet, the internet doesn't see borders, right? Wherever you are, you get some value out of these discussions. And it maybe puts some things on your radar for the future, some things that you know that your fellow enthusiasts are enjoying and you might want to look out for. However, this is always a bi-directional thing. If you have a decent idea of the 6 whiskies that you, as a geek, enthusiast, whiskey bother, in your whiskey journey, where you are right now, things that you would be searching for, looking for, hoping to find in that dream scenario, share it in the comments below. Of course, some people will be sharing it throughout tonight in the live chat. Understandable. But if it's in the comments after the event, in the comments underneath, it kind of leaves a nice extra layer of added value for everybody that's picking it up on the replay. Anyway, before we get into all of that, I've got a tiny bit of housekeeping to do for everyone. I'll move quickly into welcoming all of you guys and then get right on with it, because we've got a lot of bottles to be getting through with. The housekeeping. Okay. A lot of you are asking about the Daftmill release. It's imminent. There's a few final pieces to fall into place. With those couple of final pieces falling into place in the next day or two, I'm getting together with patrons on Sunday night, and I'll put an official notification out to all my patrons through a lock-in on Sunday night this weekend. That means that they all know what's happening, and they get, obviously, they're first in line. Of course they are. It's with every release that I've ever done. My patrons don't really get much. I love them. They keep all the lights on. They keep me going. They keep this being my focus. So I've kind of got to focus on them first as well. So every release there's ever been, they get first go at it. So I'll share with them what's happening. And then after they've had their fill, whatever's left will go out through public. I would keep your eye on the Facebook group, Aquavitae Barflies first. And of course, that's the YouTube members will also get first shout as well. That's the way it's happening. It's imminent. It's definitely happening. There are physical bottles. I'm very keen to get my hands on the physical bottles now from the warehouse as quickly as I possibly can. Then I'll take some photos and share it with everybody. It's really quite incredible. I've kind of got to pinch myself a little bit that there's literally an official Daftmill release out there, an Aquavitae Barflies bottling, with a nice little nod to Francis and I's friendship on the back label as well. Really excited about it. Bear with me just another few weeks. Patrons will know what's happening on Sunday night. Then, just in 3 weeks' time, we've got the Independent Spirits Festival, right? In fact, I don't even think it is 3 weeks' time. It's going to be 2 weeks on Saturday. It's just over 2 weeks' time we've got the Independent Spirits Festival in Leith. Been a long time coming. I have not been putting in a lot of work or effort on this. The team behind it, David and the team have been putting all the effort in. The guys are obviously doing a lot of work to get the film series put together so that it's nice and polished and ready for going out. At the same time, the premiere's on the Friday night, and we'll be running the docu-series throughout the Saturday, and then the festival obviously runs in the afternoon, early evening. 15th of March in Leith. I don't think there are any tickets left. There may be some festival-only tickets left, I'm not sure. But I'm super excited about it. I'm super excited to be welcoming so many of you in Scotland over on the East Coast. There is going to be an event, again, I'll go through Patreon first, event for the Barflies to gather on this Sunday, and I'll share more details of that with my patrons on Sunday night as well. And if there is clearly space left over, don't worry, I'll tell everybody about it on the vPub next week. Can I wait? That's my housekeeping for this week. So no, while we wait for that, I'll raise a wee glass to welcome you all. Hope you're doing well. Hope you've got your feet up. Hope you get something nice in the glass. I wonder if it's something that you would pick as an enthusiast. I wonder if it's something you would recommend to a fellow geek and enthusiast. Cheers. Welcome, everyone. Happy Thursday. Let's do what we always do and jump into the lounge. Well, everyone's getting settled. And welcome some of you beautiful whiskey folk and dedicated Barflies. I'll scroll back up. I'm looking for the orange as I always do. So if you're trying to get a hold of me, you're trying to grab my attention, type Aquavitae or at Aquavitae, and it's highlights in orange, and I can see you. Time for a dram Gregor's in tonight. What a privilege. Thank you, buddy. Thanks for joining us. Hope you're keeping well. Looking forward to the next time we see you. It's probably going to be later in the year, right? Bruno Martins from Portugal is here. Good to see you, buddy. Said good evening, Roy. Unfortunately missed the last two vPubs, but tonight I grabbed my place. Good for you, Bruno. Even if you're not here, your bar stool's always sitting waiting for you, buddy. Good to have you. Jerry Miller is here. Good to see you, Jerry. Good evening, Roy. Great topic tonight. Well, I hope so, Jerry. It's going to be a bottle storm for sure, but we'll get through it, clip through it quite quickly, get a few discussion points. There's going to be one or two new bottles in the mix, no doubt. There's going to be one or two controversial ones in the mix, potentially. I'll do my best to stand behind my own picks and explain why. But it should be quite interesting. And it's nice to have you here participating, Jerry. Fantastic. George P is here saying, evening, Roy, and evening, Barflies. We'll have to catch this one on replay. Looking forward to it. Have a great vPub all. George, that's fantastic. You dropped in here to say hello. But now that you're picking up on the replay, welcome back, buddy. Hope you're comfortable. We missed you. We'll see you soon. Greg's Whiskey Guide. Greg from Paris is saying, hi, Roy Aquaviti. Everyone are busy lately, but now curious to see what your picks and the Barflies picks are. Slancha from Paris, France. I know there's always a wee bit of kind of excitement when we put together a list. If I wanted the vPub to be busy all the time and have a lot of retention and a lot of views on replay, I would just do lists, right? They're very popular. People love them. And people, I think, most of the time get enjoyment out of interacting with them too. But as you know, I always try to keep the vPub a wee bit varied. So, permission to do lists just from time to time. Per Caldenby, good to have you in. Per Caldenby is here saying, only 6. There may be a wee bit more than that, my friend. There may be a wee bit more than that because of the amount of lists I'm putting together. I'll take you through the theme. I'll take you through how I've cut this thing up tonight, and I'll let you try and understand a wee bit how we're going to structure it all. Good to have you in. Dave Barnes is celebrating being a member of the Barflies for 33 months. Daves, thank you so much for your support, buddy. He's one of the Barflies keeping the vPub content absolutely ad-free by clicking that membership button below, along with my pal Jimmy Jazz, who's celebrating 60 months of support. That's amazing. Can it be 5 years? What a wild Barfly ride. Well, the vPub has been going now for 7.5 years already, Jimmy. The channel's been going for 8. And yeah, the Barfly membership has obviously been running for 5, which means you've been a supporter from the start. Jimmy Jazz, Dave Barnes, thank you both very much. Good to see you, Jimmy. Alistair Gray as well, celebrating being a member for 60 months. My goodness, from the beginning. 60 months of great whiskey banter. Slancha. Buddy, it's so good to have you here. It's just amazing to have your support. Nice to have you in again tonight. And Julie Fitzjohn. Julie, thank you so much supporting me for 4 years. A member for 48 months. Day off for our whiskey festival. 4 p.m. today. Julie, I wonder how long you're going to be able to hang out with us in the vPub before you get off. You run off to do some fantastic whiskey exploration. Cheers to Alistair and Julie. Cheers. Max is here. Good to see you, buddy. Max Kreitner. Sitting next to Christina, hopefully. Saying Aquaviti, good evening, my friend. Greetings from Christina as well. She is there. Fantastic. Good to see you, Christina. Are you looking after him? Just happy to be here with you all. Arnie Doodle the Dram, good evening. He's saying, and all you dear Barflies, just got home for after my now traditional collection of surprise lunch from Denise and Peter. I'm now settling into this wonderful fun with all of yous. Arnie, I saw the artwork that you did of Amy and Peter and Denise leaning around that barrel tonight. That's your best work today. It's just the likeness is there, the energy is there, the friendliness, it's beautiful. It was emotional. It was beautiful. I just absolutely loved it, buddy. You're a talent. We need to do something with that. We need to do something with it. Finally done is here. Good evening, Roy, and all the Barflies. Hope everyone is well. Good to have you here. Finally done. It's nice to have you hanging out with us, my friend. Whiskey Lover Society saying, my list changes on a weekly basis. Mine too, big guy, mine too. So many whiskies still to be tasted. Lovely but expensive journey. You've got it. If I was to sum up tonight in one sentence, Gert, that would be a good way to do it. Billy Bennett 75 is saying, one of the bottles I really wanted, was lucky enough to buy a couple of months ago, a Springbank 21. Pricey, but I have it in the glass. Seems worth it. Fantastic example. It's just a little bit outside, Billy, the parameters that I've set for this vPub tonight. Just a wee bit too pricey. wee bit too unobtainium, sorry. But absolutely a banger, and what a treat for you to be able to have that. Helen is here. Good to have you, Helen. Going to be a fab bottle to open when we move into our new home. Okay, she's bought something special for moving up the road. I wonder how that's going. And Per is saying Daftmill is a really nice feather in your hat, as the saying goes here. Okay, so Per is over in Sweden, and he's talking about probably the challenges that he'll have, much like the challenges that we've faced over recent years as well, for getting a hold of certain products, and Daftmill has suffered from that as well. Stevie O's in. Stevie, I'm so sorry, it just jumped there that second. I'll try and scroll back up and catch your comment. Evening, Roy. Good to go. Glengoyne in the glass. Fantastic, Stevie. I managed to get it. And it's Gian Luigi from Dramming Around, him and Teresa. Both going to be at the White Fife Whisky Festival this weekend. Anybody going to be there? Hopefully get a chance to bump into those of you that are there as we stroll around. We're going to the second session a bit later in the day, but if you're in Fife, that would be amazing to see you along with Gianluigi and Teresa. They're volunteering. And Alberto Rodriguez saying, good evening, Roy. Looking forward to tonight. It's curious to see how many of us have a Springbanks local barley on our dream list. Stay tuned, Alberto. Helen is saying, Kilkerran 12 and the Glencairn's Defo, an enthusiast dram and such great value. Please stay tuned. Helen, although you might find that I don't have any Kilkerran 12-year-old in the lineup tonight. Falsgraf Klaus is saying, got a remnant of older blended malt, sherried scallywag, not a sherry fantastic, but it is really nice. Fantastic. Whatever you're enjoying, whatever's going down nice, I think the vPub is often so much more about the company than the whiskies that we feature. Listen, it's jumped again. The chat's jumped again. It's got me right up to speed with it. We're right up to date with everything. Daniel Williams, my pal Daniel from the Netherlands, celebrating being a Barfly for 50 months. Only 50 months for me. Hey, Roy, been a while. It has been, buddy. Thank you for your support. And Grain of Malt, that's James in Sweden. He's saying it's a privilege to be part of this community. Buddy, it's a privilege to have you as part of our community. Thanks for the kind words. And a big, big thanks to David Hong, who always drops in. He always drops me a wee dram. David, you're often the first to drop me a wee dram on a Thursday night. It's just amazing to have you here. No comment again tonight, buddy, but a generous dram. Thank you, James. Thank you, Daniel. And thank you, David. Thanks for your support, always. Gino Como's in from Canada, and Frank Peathead is in the building. Despite that chat jumps, we're still here, don't worry. So what happens is that if I focus on is it scrolling? If I focus on one and I read it out, once sometimes it'll just refresh and just scroll all the way to the bottom, or if I just click wrong or scroll wrong, it refreshes it and makes it jump to the bottom, which is sometimes how I manage to miss out so many folk. Listen, every time when I put in the chapter markers afterwards to keep people watching on replay in a much more kind of speedy way, I suppose, I see lots of comments and lots of people that are here that I've missed, and I didn't welcome them. There's Drinks Whiskey in tonight. There's Andy Peers in tonight. I mean, just it makes me kind of anxious. I wish I'd spotted them in. I wish I'd had a chance to welcome them. If I don't see your name, if I don't spot that you've been in, please don't take it personally. I know that I did see you eventually, and I'm very, very appreciative of the fact that you're here. Okay, let's put the wheels on tonight. Going to cast you back. Actually, before I go into that, let me hold up a bottle that will not appear tonight. It will not appear tonight. This is Speyburn. This would have absolutely been in our lineup tonight. Maybe the Speyburn 15, maybe the Speyburn 18, maybe the AnCnoc 24. That's also not going to appear tonight. AnCnoc 18 does not appear tonight. These are Inverhouse products that are currently going through a revamp and a rebranding. Instead of the natural unchill filtered statements, instead of the natural colour statements, instead of everything that we've come to love about these whiskies in recent years, the rebrand has taken those away. We're going to have these things on anymore. In the case of Speyburn, it's 40% ABV. We're still waiting to see the bottles released and how it's going to come out. And in the case of AnCnoc, it's just heartbreaking. 43% ABV, which means they're going to chill filter. This is malt whiskey. It's made from barley. It doesn't like to be diluted. If it dilutes, it's going to cloud potentially, especially if it sees colder temperatures. A lot of the kind of oils and fats come out of solution at low ABV. And it means that if you pour it over ice, it'll cloud and all, because it's malt whiskey. Keep it at 46% thereabouts and above, and it's much more stable in the fats and oils and these long chain fatty acids and esters or whatever produces these fats and oils stay in solution, and it's not cloudy. So malt whiskey is telling us not to dilute it. It's expressing itself, and yet we continue to do it. We continue to do it. Blends are perfect for 40% consumption, ABV consumption. You know, wheat and things like that don't suffer nearly as much. You know, it's produced when it goes through a column still, like the majority of grain whiskey does. It doesn't need chill filtered. So if we want to be producing high volume 40% ABV products, that's what blends are there for. Malt whiskey doesn't like it. We put a petition together at Dramface to try and get people to step forward and sign up and say, we don't like this. We don't want this to happen. We're now at 913 signatures tonight. This is the last time I'm going to remind you of this. It's the last time I'm going to talk about it, the last time I'm going to push you, because if we can get to 1,000 signatures, I'm going to send it off to Inverhouse and ask them, offer them the resources that's available to them within the community, the knowledgeable people that's out there, that's their whiskey-loving community, and ask them to keep things authentic. Ask them to keep things the way that we've grown to love their products in recent years. That's a pinned link that's in the chat now, so hopefully it's right at the top. Anybody that hasn't signed that petition, it only takes literally seconds. Hop in, sign that petition. If you've got any feelings to express, please do so in the comment section on the petition, so that when we send it off to them, they've got absolutely everything and the voice of lots and lots of their fans out there as well. Okay, enough ranting from me about that. So that means Speyburn and AnCnoc isn't going to appear in any of the products tonight. These have been discontinued, so I'm not going to start raving about things that's going to be disappearing quite quickly. Suffice to say, if you can still get your hands on Speyburn, AnCnoc, 1824, Speyburn, 1518 at decent prices, grab them. Because what's coming back online after they disappear is not going to be the same ethos. It's not going to be produced to the same sensibilities. It's different. And it's against the zeitgeist, and it's against the future of malt whiskey. That's what I believe. Anyway, let's wind the clock back now to early 2023. And I sat here in front of you and said, you know, one of these usual collection videos that I do will set a price target, and we'll try and pick a really good bottle from all of the 5 producing whiskey regions: Campbelltown, Islay, Lowlands, Speyside and Highlands. And we'll try and make it as natural as possible and see if we can meet the target of £249. But as I got closer to that vPub, I wanted to be very kind of mindful of the real pushback that the community was feeding to me, to everyone. Prices are too hard, they're too high. So I wanted to focus on what was available, what was the good value stuff. And it meant that it took a lot of the age statement stuff out of the running. It meant I had to focus on non-age statement, but I wanted to stay with natural product, as natural as possible. And I managed to put together that collection I removed 20% from that 249 target, brought it down to £199, and I managed to put together a collection of 5 whiskies, 1 from each region, that met that target. So let's just give you a refresher. I'm not going to line these bottles up there. I will link to that vPub from 2 years ago if anybody wants to pick it up. Why you would want to go back and watch me all over again, I'm not sure. But if you've wanted to look at the whiskies or a reason or justification back then, you can do that. It's not going to be the focus tonight, but I'm just going to remind you of what the 5 whiskies were. First up, non-age stated, was Glen Scotia's double cask. This was obviously our Campbelltown entry. And the reason that I picked this is because it's a very, very popular wee product. It says rich and spicy on the back label, 46% ABV. It's unchill filtered. This is Glen Scotia liquid finished in PX casks. That's where it gets the name double cask. So it's bourbon and PX. And it's a much loved delicious wee bottle of whiskey. Unfortunately, there's no statement on the label of natural colour, so we assume that there's They're adding caramel colour to this down at Glen Scotia. I wish they wouldn't. Interestingly, and I need to say this, the rum cask sibling of this, slightly paler product, very, very nice bottle of whiskey, 46% unchill filtered as well, is fully natural colour. But that's a more recent product from Loch Lomond Group. This has been out in the market for a long time. So perhaps for consistency, perhaps just because they haven't caught up yet, perhaps they're not brave enough yet, I don't know, but they still reserve the right to add colour to the double cask. That said, at the price this was at in 2023, and honestly the value that this is still available at today, it's still a great, delicious, easy sipping, wonderful whiskey for enthusiasts, but one that's also pretty good at bringing people into whiskey too. That was quite an easy pick back then. For our Islay pick, we went over to Kilchoman, the furthest west of the Islay distilleries. This is the Machier Bay, fully ex-bourbon, matured. This is core range product now from Kilchoman, probably their highest volume product, I would say as well, which means that it's always tends to be the one that we get on a decent price. We can usually pick this up at a good price, and we occasionally see it going on offer with a couple of quid knocked off. I think it's fantastic. The majority of Kilchoman is non-age stated, of course. They do have vintage statements out there. Famously, they had a couple of years ago, they had their 16-year-old, and just this week they announced a new 13-year-old. Wee bit pricey. I think it's up there at, I think it's about, I don't want to say the price because I'm making it up, but it's on Dramface. I think it's 90 quid. Is it 90 quid? But it's 13 years old age statement. It's very rare to see an age statement from Kilchoman, but they've been around long enough now that there's got to be a lot of mature stock there, giving them the opportunity to put out age-stated stuff. Nevertheless, Machier Bay remains alongside the Sanic and other regular releases from Kilchoman, non-age stated. Still, that made up part of that list in 2023. And then we went down to the Lowlands. There's plenty available from the Lowlands these days, much more than there's ever been. There was once upon a time that we would have an occasional Bladnoch, we'd have an occasional Auchentoshan, or lots of kind of fairly mediocre Auchentoshan and Glenkinchie 12, and that would be about it. But that's not true these days. There's more and more Lowland whiskies coming onto the scene all the time. And back in 2023, the now discontinued, this is still available in a lot of markets out there. This is Kingsbarn's Dream to Dram, which is a 46% ABV, unchill filtered, natural colour from First Fill Bourbon. And was this First Fill? First Fill Bourbon, yes, and First Fill STR. Brick matured. So First Fill on both. So STR is stripped, toasted, and recharred. So they're kind of, it's rejuvenation of a wine barrique. So they'll strip it down, they'll toast it to access some of those the qualities within that wood, and then they'll do a rechar layer as well, and then they can use that for malt whiskey. It brings quite a lot of spice. It's quite a Marmite way to treat whiskey. I think some people enjoy it and some people like it less. I'm okay with it as long as it's used with a light touch. I have to say, you can see that this is maybe my second bottle. I don't want to say it's my third, but it's at least my second bottle of Dream to Dram. This is quite a nice, wee, light, ethereal, easy drinking, fruity, good quality, enough interest and detail and complexity in there to keep the enthusiast engaged, and easy for you to pour for pals and things as well that are a wee bit more laid back. And it was always at a decent price as well. So that was our Lowland entry. Then we went up to Speyside, and back in 2023, I put forward, I think this was a 2022, late 2022 launch from Glenallachie. This is their 8-year-old product. Now, the way I described this is kind of like a lower ABV 46% version of their 10-year-old cask strength. Non-chill filtered, natural colour. I enjoyed the 8-year-old, and I still enjoy the 8-year-old more than the 12. Much more than the 15, both of which I feel are a wee bit more kind of, I don't know, cask heavy, just all about the cask, all about the cask. At 8 years old, there was still quite a vibrance to this. There was still a bit of quite a youth, basically enough of the spirit still punching through to bring a wee bit more interest and spice and dimension to this whiskey. However, it was the only age statement from the original list that I put together back in 2023. Finally, our Isla segment was taken care of by the fantastic value that came from Tobermory. This is their Lechik. This is the Rioja variant of the Sinclair series. I don't know if there's anything else being added to the Sinclair series since this bottle, but this was fantastic value. In 2023, we were picking this up at £34 and below. It's a wee bit more than that now. You'd probably up at £38. All of the whiskies I've shared with you tonight have bumped up in price in the two and a bit years since. 46.3% ABV, unchill filtered. No statement about colour on this, but we believe it to be natural colour. And the Rioja casks that they're using to finish this in should be active enough to bring lots and lots of colour to this. There is a kind of quite a pinkish magenta type hue to this thing, which you'll get from a lot of wine casks or fortified wine, port casks, that kind of thing. You sometimes get those highlights coming through the whiskey, and it's definitely there in that one. So that was the 5 whiskies back in 2023. And when we put it together, I've got a wee slide here, a wee overlay that I'll draw up to let you just remind you of the prices that we paid back then, and also bring you up to date with what we would have to pay today. Anyway, here's our list of our January 2023, we did this vPub, our list of our 5 whiskies. £40 for the Glen Scotia, Kilchoman 42, 43 for the Kingsbarns from the Lowlands. Glenallachie was 41, and the cheapest out of the list was the Lechik, non-age stated, 33%. Only one with an age statement is that Glenallachie. As I said, we managed to put it together for £199, which gave us an average bottle price of £33. Now, the inflation, depending on where you start in 2023, whether it's late 2022 or 2023, the inflation should hover between somewhere around 4.5% to 9.5% inflation over the course of that time until today. So the prices, you would expect them to have gone up a little bit. And the prices that you'll have to buy for these bottles today, by the way, they are all still firm recommendations. I changed my mind on none of them, despite the fact that the prices have crept up a little. The Glen Scotia is now at 43, Kilchoman now up at 48, Kingsbarns 45, Glenallachie 8-year-old 43, and Lechik non-age stated, as I say, 38. Now that bumps our 199 up by £18 to £217, which means that the average price per bottle today is £36. Actually, well within the margin of inflation. That's just what's happened to the prices generally in the last 2 and a bit years. None of the whiskies in our lineup tonight has gone crazy. None of them have gone out of order. However, what I will say is that Kingsbarns, that Dream to Dram, is now discontinued and replaced by a new product called Ducat. And the Ducat is round about the exact same price as the one it replaced. So they are all absolutely still well within the realms of recommendation. However, we were quite restricted back in January 2023. The whole theme of 2023 was so much to do with focusing on price. And very much in January, that's why I started at that point in the year talking about how much is it going to cost for us to put this together. The figure I want you to bear in mind was £33, rising to today's £36. Decent job, because we managed to put together some fantastic, engaging whiskey recommendations that won't break the bank. The scenario would be if you were to suggest to someone, going out and starting a whiskey collection, you want something from all regions, you've got 200 quid, you can do that. You can fill a shelf with an example of a single malt whiskey that's more or less natural from all the regions for less than £200. It would be 217 today, all still valid recommendations, as I say. But what if we were to flip that a little bit now? What if I was to say, okay, we keep talking about price. We're always talking about price. What if we remove that? In our imaginary scenario of putting together a shelf, we also put together a retailer. And this retailer has all the core expressions from all the single malt distilleries in Scotland in stock and on the shelf. We walk in there and we are able to, there will still be some restrictions. It can't be, we can't just go in and say, okay, I'll have a Springbank 30, please. I'll have we're not going to be silly about it, because there has to be value in this discussion. So we walk into our imaginary retailer as a whiskey enthusiast in 2025, what are we going to pick to try and do the same thing we did in January 2023 without the shackles? And after we've picked them, what is the cost going to be? What is that receipt going to look like when it's printed out and handed over to us? What's the average bottle price going to look like? Well, that's what I spent this week putting together. Based on the bottles, I've done these lists in the past. I was going to cover this list in the past. It's just one of these things that I kept putting off, but I had to update all the prices to today's prices and all the releases to today's releases. And that's what I'm going to share with you now. Greg in Paris is saying, nah, you definitely need an Ardnamurchan. 15-year-old 2023 or 2023 cast strength Roy. I'll tell you, it's next level to the 10-year-old you enjoyed. Believe me, I'm looking forward to getting my hands on an Ardnamurchan 15-year-old. I already loved that 10-year-old. Thought it was a fantastic French whiskey, single malt whiskey as well, Greg. Very much made in the Scotch way, the Scotch tradition. A tradition, something that we can recognise. Great quality and not too bad on prices. Arthur is here saying, I think you should practice your maths, Roy. Oh, have I made a wee mistake? Have I made an error? Are you checking out on me, Arthur? Let me know where I've made a mistake. 18 quid more expensive. 36 quid. I don't know. Where have I made a mistake? Anyway, Keith Duncan is saying, seems like a bargain list to me. Keith, would you recommend them? I think you probably would. Dave the Brave is in saying, how's that average 33 when the lowest was 33 and most of them are 40? Oh, I tell you what I've done. I do need to practice my maths. That's absolutely right. And it's critical that I bring this up. All the lists I'm going to share with you tonight are based on 6 bottles, okay? That list was based on 5 bottles because there's 5 whiskey regions. And what I've done is I've taken that massive Highlands region and I've split it into 2, Highlands and Islands. So the lists going forward, to give me a wee bit more wiggle room to talk about more things, is based on 6 regions. But of course, my maths is based on that. So let's do that again. So £199 divided by 6 back in the day, actually, to 199 divided by 6 is 33. That's my mistake. So 199 divided by 5 equals £39.80. So 40 quid. 40 quid was the price back in the day, which makes sense because 199 divided by 5, that's easy to do. And then, of course, 217, the prices that it would be today divided by 5, that's going to bump up to £43.40. So let's do that by divided by 40. See what it is in terms of 8.5% inflation. Okay, so if we take that figure of £43.40 and work out how many more percentage points that is over 40, it's about 8.5%. So still kind of within that margin. Thank you, Arthur. Thank you, Dave the Brave, for pointing out my crappy maths. When I was putting together those overlays, I never clicked. Doc's in as well. Your calculations were incorrect. You divided 6 but showed 5 bottles. That's right, buddy. You did. We've worked it out. We did it together. I'm glad you keep me honest and right. From here forward, we will be dividing by 6 bottles because I've split the Highland regions. There's just so many things. There are so many. It was so hard to put this together. So hard. Anyway, I've put together 6 with all shackles removed, bar the following caveats. Greg is talking about Ardnamurchan France, his Scotch single malt whiskey we're focused on tonight. We have to put some kind of baby bumpers up here to keep us in focus somehow. They all have to be kind of core range bottles. That means that they have to be contemporary products that are available today, not in the process of being discontinued or that kind of thing, or discontinued in the past. Not really, we're not going to focus too much. We're okay with annual releases for sure. Regular annual releases, that type of thing is fine. But special limited releases, we're not going to focus on that. It has to be single malt Scotch whisky as well. Although last week's vPub, the blends, delicious whiskies. I've been sipping them ever since. I'm in love with them. I think they're fantastic. Really, really good. So glad to have those blends from last week's vPub on. Just brilliant whiskey, great prices too for the most part. However, tonight we're focused on single malts to keep things cleaner. I'm going to try and focus on less than 20 years. My limit on price is 150 quid, 150. Just think of 150 pounds. That's a lot of money. That's the limit I'm putting on things. So we are saying that the shackles are off and what is your dream whiskies and your wish list and all of that, but we have to keep a lid on something. We can't just go in and, yeah, I'll have this 25-year-old Lefroy and a 30-year-old Springbank, and it's not going to be quite like that. If we go over triple figures, we need to start being a wee bit careful. It really needs to be something that we can justify. 6 regions, as I say, and also I've tried within each of my selections to try, and it's not always possible, but to do a nice profile flavor category style mix. So focus on maybe at least try and have a bourbon in there, a bourbon matured product. I mean, a sherry cask matured product, a peaty product, that kind of thing. A vatted product. That's just try and get a nice wee flavor spread. So that's the caveats. 6 of each. Okay, let's roll into the first list then. And this is our wish list. These are the whiskies that we're just going to go into our imaginary retailer and say, these are the things that people are talking about. These are the things that I seem to only be able to see on social media. Maybe I can't find them, maybe I can't afford them, but I know that they're in this retailer, I'm going to grab them. David Brave is saying, totally fine. As an analyst, I'm quite anal about that stuff. Sorry, don't apologise, Dave. Not only do you keep me honest, but you keep the content making sense as well. Sugar Kitty's here, good to have you. Thanks to the Barflies. We have 10 more signatures on that petition. Thank you all so much. I'm going to keep it fixed there, Sugar Kitty. I'm going to keep it at the top so that people can be reminded to sign it. If we get it, nudge it towards that 1,000. I think 1,000 is just a decent number. You know, it got 500, 600, 700, 800 very, very quickly. But it's slowed down now because I think we've saturated most of the people that would sign it. Glenn Duncan is saying, wishing you all a farewell to our summer and welcome to your spring. We'll catch up on the replay as usual. Cheers to you all. Glenn, so good to have you in, buddy. How are you keeping? That's a really nice thing to wish. I hope that summer's been good to you and you're looking forward to the cooler months of the winter. We could certainly do with a wee bit of sunshine. I saw blue skies this week and it was a charm to see them. It's amazing. Sugar Kitty, cheers to you, and Glenn Duncan, cheers. Righto, Arnie's saying, for my Highland pick, I would seriously struggle between Clynelish 14 and Loch Lomond 14. Highlands is an odd one. Okay, let's get on. We walk into our dealer, we walk into our specialist spirits retailer, and they have a selection of core range Springbanks on the shelf. Of course they do. In our imaginary scenario, such a thing exists. So we're faced with all these brightly coloured labels of Springbank. What do we pick up? It's really tough, isn't it, to put together? I could have easily picked a Springbank 18, still under £150. It fits the remit. I could have picked up a Springbank 12 cask strength, well under £100. Really, really scarce, really difficult to get hold of. But the one I went for, since we're dreaming, since this is a wish list, is, of course, somebody's already mentioned it, Springbank's local barley. Can you imagine if this was a wee bit more available? Can you imagine if we could get a hold of it? Let me tell you what the Springbank local barley is. It's an annual release from Springbank. The clue's in the name. Springbank use Scottish barley, generally speaking. It's all going to be brought down to the peninsula, down there in Argyll to the distillery from Scotland. But for this release, they use local barley. Now, the west coast of Scotland is not the most welcoming environment when it comes to growing crops. Whatever weather the ocean's going to bring, it brings, and it just dumps it. That means high winds, that means a lot of waterfall, sorry, a lot of rainfall, and it's really, really quite difficult. So people trying to grow Islay barley, people trying to grow any kind of west coast barley, not only is the terrain not suited to it on the west coast, but the weather is pretty bad. That means that the crop itself, the grain is much smaller, it's much harder to work with. If you speak to anybody while you're doing a tour at Springbank, especially if you speak to anybody on the malt floors, talk to them about handling the local barley for these releases. It's really, really tough for them, really tough to handle. It means it's a much more expensive product. This is small scale, limited release, harder, more expensive crop, harder to handle, harder to put together, all the rest of it. and this ends up being an expensive product. This is typically £90 to £100. This is actually last year's 13-year-old, which is a 2024 release. I have managed to, Sid Martin managed to get this for me when he was down in Campbelltown. Thank you, Sid. And the Monday Whiskey Hunter, the superstar that is Peter, has picked me up this year's release. It's been a long, long time since I've been able to get my hands on local barley, so to get 2 consecutive years is a really, really big deal. None of those challenges face you tonight when you're picking your imaginary 6 bottles. And of course, number 1 in the wish list has to be a Springbank, and it would probably have to be local barley, £90 to £100. Where are we going to go for our Islay pick? £100 is our £150 is our ceiling, remember. When this bottle arrived, now it would have been so easy for me to go for something that was peaty, something that was much more recognisable, maybe a nice 18-year-old Lafroig. It's over £150. We can't go for that. And the more and more you look, even Lagavulin Diageo Special Release's 12-year-old, it breaches the £150 mark. So I'm all over the island of Islay wondering what to get. But of course, I'm focusing on peat. And as soon as I let myself off the peat hook and remember the gorgeous whiskey that I discovered last year from Bruichladdich, their 18-year-old, loved this bottle so much. And I was so careful with it. It was so slowly sipped. But the problem with this jacket is that you never see the level, the fill that's in the bottle. And one day I open it up and there's only a wee drop left of it and I'm heartbroken. But my wife went out and picked up this for my Christmas. This was my Christmas gift to me from my wife this year. Nice one, right? 50% ABV, fully natural, super elegant whiskey. Now, this may be a different batch from that first batch that I bought when it was first launched. Absolutely loved it. I really hope that this is the same. In my memory, this looks just a touch darker. They are natural colour at Bruichladdich, but there's not much in it if it is darker. I never held 2 bottles together to compare, and it could be that this is actually still part of the first batch. I don't really know. I've not looked into it. There is transparency, and there's ways for you to check into Bruichladdich, and you can see exactly what you've got in the bottle. However, this was my Islay pick, and once I realised that this was available and it hit the remit, it hit within the 150 or less, it was available, it was going to be a part of their core range going forward. This was an easy thing to pick for my wish list from Islay. Expensive though, right? Bruichladdich 18, 50%. Can't wait to get that one open and see if it's as good as the batch that came out in early 2024. So then we're going to come down to the Lowlands. Now, okay, I'm going to pause for a second and I'll just get you to predict what am I going to pull forward as our wish list for the Lowlands. Jimmy Legg is in. Good to see you, Jimmy. I'll catch that in a second. Falscraft Class is saying it seemed to be quite easy to please. I get up to €233. Oh, which makes a bottle price of $46.60. Okay, that's he's talking about his collection. Sticking to core range whiskies with the highest price of $59 and the lowest at $37. Klaus, you also have a wee bit of a bonus there as well. You're in Germany, not for everything, but certainly for core range official releases. You tend to be entry-level ones, at least. You tend to be well looked after, and the prices are quite good in Germany. But well done. I sense a vPub talking about sheep versus barley. Let's do it, Roddy. Come on. See how many folk we get tuning in for a vPub about sheep. How are you doing, buddy? Justin Wan is saying Bruichladdich 18 is so good. So glad you're enjoying it, Justin. It's just gorgeous whiskey. Whiskey Weekend Drama is saying we'd go for a Springbank 15 or 18 or a Kilkerran 16. Very good. Stay tuned, Harrow. You might be interested to see what I bring in. Craig McGinnis here. Good to see you, Craig. How you doing? He said, couldn't agree more on Bruichladdich 18. That's nice to have the community stepping forward and saying pricey, but delicious as well. Justin Rand saying, I got my bottle of Bruichladdich 18 around the same time as you did. My bottle is barely past the top of the label because I'm nursing it like a newborn. Jimmy Legg is saying, I always like that, Lynn. She invests in quality. Aquavitae. I'll pass on your kind words, Jimmy. Although she'll look at me through narrow eyes and ask what I'm after. Rod Graham is saying 10 young farmers and 0 barflies. That's right. That would be enough. As long as you and I are hanging out and getting good whiskey, we'll do it though. Billy Bennett 75 is saying Daftmill. You can see lots of other people suggesting that it's Daftmill as well. Our back garden, it might be the first time I've welcomed you in our back garden, but I can see you're a Barfly. Thanks for your support. Andy Pears is saying, Daftmill. Lots of people. If we go to the lowlands, you know, Bladnoch's been revived. You occasionally get something that comes out of Auchentoshan that can pique your interest, but really not much. It's heartbreaking. Glenkinchie, you know, once in a blue moon, a special releases or something that's too expensive to afford. But then Daftmill came along, right? And they waited and waited and waited. I don't think there's been an official Daftmill released that's less than 10 years old. Usually it's in the order of 12. And then more recently, as things became more mature, they brought out their 15-year-old Fife strength, fantastic cask strength release from them as well. Lots of single casks and special releases and things too. So yes, of course, Daftmill. Now, the 15-year-old and the single casks I mentioned, we can't get a hold of those. Those are all above that £150 ceiling. Of course they are. But this is I paid 90 quid for this, I think. This has been open for a wee while. I think I opened this one when Francis was on, when he joined us for the vPub. 46% ABV. This is the 2006 winter batch. This is one I'm getting through just now. Now, Daftmill for me is just all about that lovely, ethereal, decadent, fruity, slightly fizzy, ever so slightly lactic, grain forward, spirit forward, just super whiskey, and it's got to be from bourbon casks for me. I do enjoy Daftmill from a sherry cask. I've never owned a full bottle of it. If I'm going to pay this amount of liquid, it has to be something that's right up my street, and Daftmill has to be from a bourbon cask. I'm really, really enjoying this one. The one I had before this was a 2009, which was a summer batch, I think, going from memory, which was even better. Just lovely, lovely. Lots of really delicate, detailed top notes. Lots of sprinkle, lots of spark, lots of vitality. Just really, really enjoy the liquid. It's very, very unique, and it's a treat to have it. They fill 100 casks a year. It's just very, very tiny. Francis runs the distillery when the farm is in its down season. That's why we've got summer season and winter season. So he's just running it for a few weeks in both seasons to put out, roughly speaking, 40, 50 casks each season, if you like, and it becomes really, really quite scarce liquid. There's another distillery I'll be talking about tonight that is also equally scarce, but Daftmill from the lowlands is the obvious no price constraints pick, right? It's £105 to buy it if you were to buy this today. Like I say, I think I paid 90 for this. Pick it up at retail now, £104, £105. Things are expensive, right? We're in three figures for everything. Greg's Whisky Guide is saying, I did resist buying a nice Daftmill this year and finally got to order a special Cavalan instead. Just as expensive though, Aquavite. French, a store pick bourbon cask, but low ABV cask strength. Okay, well, that's interesting. Low ABV, that is interesting. Usually we see really quite high, we see a lot of water evaporation, high ABV and things like that from Cavalan, from the kind of tropical climates there. I hope you're enjoying it. I hope it was worth spending the extra pennies on, Greg. Okay, so now we go to Speyside. This is actually the most challenging, especially when you consider I've just taken out Speyburn from the discussion, right? These are going to be made much lower ABV. It's going to be discontinued. The 15 and 18-year-old, they would have been easy picks to put in this lineup. But there are still things up there. There are things happening in Speyside that still means that one of the busiest, most concentrated areas in Scotch whisky production is not all focused on blends. It's not all focused on entry-level single malts. There's still good stuff there. It would have been really nice to be able to put the Longmorn 18 in this lineup, the Secret Speyside release, but it's discontinued. The one it's replaced is a cask strength, but it's way over double the price. It's not even in the consideration. It didn't even make a shortlist. However, this one not only can make the shortlist, but it can make it through. We've got something from Dewars here, 46% ABV, one of the nicest whiskies, one of the nicest core range official bottlings I've got on my shelf. This is Craigellachie's 17-year-old. Lovely and rich whiskey. I do notice a wee bit of a difference batch to batch on this, but the quality floor is never ever low. It's always very, very high. I think you might prefer one batch to the next. Just the way it worked out, this most recent one that I've picked up is probably my favorite. I think it's also the darkest. It was also the chewiest, the most spiced, the most kind of dried fruit and rich, but it had a lovely, lovely kind of mature, kind of late teens. Maybe you would even consider this if you were sipping it blind into the early 20s. It had a lovely maturity about it as well. I paid £100 and something, £107 or something for this. To buy it now today in 2025, you're probably talking £123 to pick up Craigellachie's 17-year-old. Bit pricey, but it's bloody good whiskey, and I'm glad that it's there because it means that we've got a fantastic quality entry to put in there from Speyside in our wish list. Craigellachie. Two more to go. And what we're going to do is we're going to do the Highlands and the Islands. So let's see, if you could have anything from any producing distillery in the Highlands, what would you pick? Justin Wan is saying Benromach cast strength. He's going into the Speyside section again. Jimmy at Legacy saying, not challenging at all. Aquaviti, Benromach is still in Speyside, right? Absolutely, Benromach is there, but there's other lists to share with you tonight. Road to Dram Alberto saying a Benromach cast strength for me. Wow, it's popular, isn't it? But happy with the Craigellachie 17-2. Grainamalt James is saying excellent choice. Glad you're enjoying it as well, James. Hellswood is saying fabulous whiskey. Love it, love it, love it. It really is. It's just gorgeous stuff. It's a real treat whiskey. Wee bit like that kind of sense of decadence that comes with the Bruichladdich 18. Ginger Genius, good to see you, buddy. Saying I had a bottle of Craigellachie 17 a couple of years ago and just didn't connect with it. Ooh, wonder if it's a batch thing or maybe just know your profile. And the trouble is, when we're up £123, it's very difficult for you to go out and shell that kind of money, okay? We're going to try and work on these prices. Stay with us, John. Whiskey Weekend Dram is saying, biggest retailer in the Netherlands has the Craigellachie for €88 and 10% discount for members. Harrow, that's just ridiculous. That's a no-brainer. That's like, wow, how? Sean Causer saying, AnCnoc 24 all day. Sean, fantastic to have you in, buddy, but I talked about the 24-year-old discontinued means that in order to give this vPub and this discussion a wee bit of evergreen time, you know, same as the Speyburns, we're not going to talk about the AnCnoc 18 or 24. Absolutely a fantastic product. And right up until it got discontinued, we were still able to buy that 24-year-old product for less than £150. Grainamalt James is saying €110 for Craigellachie 17 here in Sweden. Come over. Fantastic. Daniel Williams, Craigellachie 17 comes for €90 from time to time here. Again, Daniel's in the Netherlands backing up it was already been mentioned there. Fantastic. Tom Frenny is saying, evening, if I were heading into the Highlands, I'd go Loch Lomond's latest 16-year-old. Ooh, interesting pick. And Harrow Road to Dram is saying Leitchik 18, please. Leitchik. Because I've split the Highlands into Highlands and Islands, Leitchik has the ability, Alberto, to fit into the Islands. But stay with us. I don't see anybody that's picked this. So I need to put you into the frame of mind where you can have anything from any producing Scottish distillery. They're just sitting on the shelf. There's no ballots to go through here. There's no visits to the source. That you don't need to do that. This imaginary retailer has all the core ranges from all the Scotch producing distilleries all the time. You can just go in and buy it. If it was me, I'm a geek. I'm into it. This is expensive, this exercise that we're going through, but let's get the expensive stuff out of the way. If we talk about Daftmill being scarce, what about Dornoch? What about Dornoch? Now, interesting, if you look at this label here, there's a reason for this. Dornoch isn't actually on the label. It does say on the back, distilled, matured and bottled in Dornoch. Dornoch Distillery Co. written on the back at Dornoch Castle. But on the front, this has just got Thompson Brothers single malt Scotch whisky, distilled at Dornoch Distillery written under the label. Cask number, this particular one is cask 124, a 5-year-old, 57.4% ABV cask strength. This is actually what was left of a bottle that was gifted to me after a tasting that Thompson Brothers had. I didn't buy this one. The one that I've got up there is cask 130. Would that be right? I'm going from memory. I think it's 130, the one I purchased. But this is just something that I've managed to get my hands on. So this is going to go to but I'll find a way to share this, because just like that Thompson Brothers tasting that we had in Glasgow and back in January, the majority of the people there had never tasted this liquid. They'd never tried it before. Such is the scarcity of this. But our imaginary retailer doesn't suffer from that scarcity, right? This is our wish list. We can just go in and pick it up. If we were to go in and pick this up, though, despite this being a 50 cl bottle, this would cost us 100 quid. So if we were to multiply that up, we'd be up in the order of 120, 125 or whatever for the extra 20 cl. Maybe a wee bit more than that, actually. My maths are a wee bit off. It is what it is. It's pretty expensive. It's scarce stuff, a bit like if you were to go out and buy a single cask Daftmill or something like that. It all starts to get really quite expensive. They don't even fill 100 casks a year. But in our imaginary retailer, and we are the whiskey bothers, we are geeks, we go in and there's Thompson Brothers there's Dornoch on the shelf. Money's not an issue, not for this list. The shackles are off, so we're going to pick it up. That's what we're going to do. So finally, I've got one more to do, and it's the first one that I'm going to uncork with you tonight. I think I've got something to uncork from each of my lists. So a wee sip of this. Justin Wan is celebrating being a member of Barflies for 15 months, saying, I'm here tonight, welcome me. My pal Justin tuning in. I've already picked up his chat tonight from Hong Kong. Roddy's saying, literally every core product. Then I'd have Dalyun 15, Springer 12, Daftmill Winter 2011, Brackla 12, Buna 12. Fantastic, Roddy. So this is exactly what I'm talking about. The imaginary retailer with no prices, no price constraints for this wish list, for this first list. What would the geeks pick? What this does is it means that it opens our field of view up to our treat bottles, our occasional things that we indulge for Christmases or birthdays or something like that. It opens our minds up to remembering things that are not usually on the table, such as the Springbanks, as you mentioned there, maybe the Daftmills and maybe the Dornochs and things like that. What if, because we're whiskey geeks and we want to get a hold of these, but we know because of the restrictions and the scarcity and maybe the price, we're not going to get a chance to connect with them. So, but for our wish list, these are not considerations for us. Drinks Whiskey is saying that's an excellent Thompson Brothers bottle aquavit. I took mine to Kentucky and I cracked it with a bourbon distiller before leaving the rest in a bar in Louisville, isn't it? For proper whiskey drinkers to enjoy. David, that would have been a fantastic trip. And what an amazing gesture by you as well to leave that behind. Just terrific. Well done. I would have been tempted to steal it and to bring it home. Share it with my pals. Justin Mann is saying Lechic 18 for the islands. Oh, Justin. Close. Very close. This is an uncorking. Now, it would have been absolutely valid for me to put Lechic in here. Lechic 18-year-old, fantastic pick. And I'm at the same distillery here. This is Tobermory Distillery. But this is not Lechic 18. I do have maybe only one other bottle, maybe two other bottles of this brand from this distillery on the shelf, despite the fact I've got all of that whiskey on the shelves here. There's really not much of this. This is expensive. This is a treat bottle. This is something that I needed a reason to open it, and I needed a good topic on the vPub to share it with you as well. The caveat here is this is an uncorking. This isn't me recommending. This is me suggesting that something from this distillery should be in here. But since I've got this to open, why don't we try this tonight and see if it's up there? The ABV on this one is, I hope it's a bit higher, 55.9% ABV. So we assume that that's going to be cask strength. It tells us that it's non-chill filtered on the label. Maybe we can see from the colour of this that we're looking at a nice, dark, rich colour. And we believe this to be exclusively Oloroso matured. So we're not talking about a finishing thing where they've taken some bourbon or something else and finished it in Oloroso. We're not even talking about a vatting of Oloroso and bourbon or STR or whatever else. We're speaking about a 17-year-old whiskey from Tobermory, from matured in Oloroso sherry casks. We need to just keep that in mind from time to time. That a lot of time these sherry forward profiles, either a vatting at times or maybe a finish. This is exclusively, so we're hoping that it's going to be a lot of refill sherry involved here, because it could be, the colour suggests not, it could be just a wee bit cask forward at 17 years old, if it's all first fill. This limited edition matured in Oloroso casks is a demonstration of our Hebridean island artistry. Aromas of blackcurrants, caramel, tropical fruits, walnuts, creamy toffee on the palate lead to a nutty finish. So it's nice to see, instead of them talking about dried fruits and chocolate and rich dark spice and these kind of things, sherry cask notes that you would expect to see, they talk a little bit about brighter fruits like blackcurrants, and they talk about tropical fruit here as well, and then they talk about walnuts and a nutty finish and creamy toffee. So that's kind of more suggestive to me of refill sherry. Noses like sherry, noses strongly of sherry. But there is a nuttiness there. There is a lot of spice. Warm autumnal notes. A wee bit outdoorsy, a wee bit farmy. Not much in the way of anything kind of sulphury though, nothing out there. Very elegant. I wonder if any of you know this whiskey. This was £122. This is very much a treat whiskey. Sherry cask is not my preference. I do enjoy it. I love it a lot. It's not like maybe a wine cask where it's really Marmite for me, or port cask is the same. Sherry is something I can really get behind and enjoy from time to time. But of course, bourbon is where I tend to be at. And if it is going to be a sherry cask, I often hope that it's light touch, that it's refill. Let's have a wee sip. Cheers, everyone. Right, okay, this is caveat. A neck pour is a thing for me, it really is. The whiskey needs time to stretch and open up and breathe a little bit. You need you need a couple of sips, you need to sit with it, a wee bit of water at first and things. All of these lovely things that we do to try and get to know a whiskey. This is like a speed dating thing going on here in front of you, sipping this live. Straight out the bottle, straight into the glass, no time to stretch and breathe. That's fabulous. That is absolutely in balance. This has been put together by somebody with a sympathetic concept of how an Oloroso sherry cask expression should be delivered. This is not all thick, gloopy Christmas cake, dried fruit and cinnamon and all of that kind of chocolate and mocha sherry cask stuff. This is balanced. This is elegant. There's a yellow fruit here thing going on. Like I want to say, I can't tell you the last time I actually ate a star fruit, but you know, that kind of ever so slightly dry, sharp sense of fruit, maybe like a crisp apple as well, sweet crisp apple. No sulfur that I can detect whatsoever, no matchbox, no fireworks. There is a dryness there. There is a wee bit of tannin on the finish, and the development and into the finish. Spice, there's a good finish to it. See if you're going to break the £100 mark. See if you're going to spend that money. You just pray that it's going to be a decent thing. I trust Tobermory. I trust Bunnahabhain. I trust they can be pricey at times. I trust Deanston, the CVH companies, the CVH distillers, sorry. I really trust them to put really good quality, integrity forward, flavour forward whiskies together. They can sometimes take a misstep here and there, but generally speaking, they do very, very well. This is a classic. Sometimes, this is true of Lechic and Tobermory brands, sometimes the 15, 16, 19-year-old type products that they put out there, the 17-year-old products, the special editions and things like that, they can be a little bit kind of, they're okay. I went out on a limb on this one, and I am very, very glad to have this. It makes it into the lineup tonight. It was a bit of a risk and a gamble, but my initial point, and you guys, it stands. Could have been the Lechic 18 in there as well. 25 quid cheaper as well for the Lechic 18 typically. However, we walk into our imaginary retailer and they have even these ones. These are kind of quite transient. This is going to be around, and it's a huge outturn. It's a really decent outturn, this 17-year-old Oloroso. It's going to be around there for a wee while. It'll still be something that you can get your hands on. It's gorgeous. It's got a great long finish too. And it's absolutely valid. It deserves to be in the lineup. So let's see where we're at with that. Our wish list. Okay, let me share with the prices in our list here. We've got the Springbank local barley is a 90 quid typically. Bruichladdich 18 is our most expensive for throughout the entire night tonight, 150. Daftmill's at 105 pounds. Craigellachie 17 at 123 pounds. Dornoch at 100 pounds. We should remember as well, Dornoch is a 50 cl bottle. Tobermory 17 at 122 pounds. That gives us this kind of 690 quid figure for six. So this lineup of whiskies that you see behind us here is 690 pounds. It's like, how did I get here? How did I get to the point that, don't get me wrong, this is a privileged place to be in, to be sitting here sipping whiskies of this value with you all. Geekery got me to this point. When I started sipping single malt whiskey, it was $17.99 and $18.99 and £20 a bottle in 2005. You were picking up decent malts for. I remember picking up a Macallan 12. Okay, it might have been the Fine Oak, but for 38 quid in the supermarket. It's 20 years since. It's not happening anymore. Prices have gone all the way up. But more than anything, what's happened, more than that really ridiculous rise in prices, what's happened is my geekery, my softening, my being tenderized to spend more and more and more on whiskey is the more of a geek, the more of an enthusiast I become. The idea of spending more than £50 on a bottle of whiskey for me was unthinkable. I remember the first bottle that I spent more than £50 on. I can't know for sure that it's this, but I'll share anecdotally. I seem to remember it was a Bruichladdich 18-year-old, one of the yellowish label ones back in the day. Port Charlotte PC5, PC6, something like that. That cost me about 75 quid as well. Ridiculous. I thought it was just the most extravagant thing to do. And now I'm sitting here talking to you about bottles that range from 100. In fact, the cheapest is the local barley at 90 to 150 pounds. 690 pounds. That means that our average bottle price for this kind of wish list scenario, this no holds barred, the average bottle price is 115 pounds. It's actually a bit more expensive than that because we need to remember the Dornoch is a 50 cl. That's our wish list taken care of. What say you? Lowlander is saying you could pick an SMWS Macallan 18-year-old for 55 quid in 2008. Lowlander, you were around there as well. You remember the days? 2008, I hadn't touched or been acquainted with SMWS at that point. I wasn't there yet. I was still, in 2008, I was still kind of going into the occasional, dropping into odd bins or Robert Graham or something like that in Glasgow, picking up an occasional thing. I think that's where I would have picked up my Bruichladdich and my PC. Can't remember if it was PC5 or PC6. Some of the original work in process. Port Charlotte's I'm talking about. It would have been back in those days around about that time. But I wasn't at SMWS. Grain and Walt James is saying, interesting final pick, Aqua Vitae. Wouldn't have guessed at Tobermory whatsoever. Wonder if it's a wee bit off your radar, right? Sean Cozer is saying, I'm the same with Ardnamurchan Sherry Cask release Aqua Vitae. Loved it, but it's a huge sherry bomb. So again, maybe, Sean, you're talking about it being sherry's not your favourite, it's not your forward, but you just, because of the Ardna thing or because of the fact that occasionally it's nice to have a step change and a mood change, you like to go with sherry from time to time. Can you still buy Starfruit? I haven't seen one in the fruit aisle for years. Yeah, I think maybe the supermarkets I'm shopping in these days aren't likely to stock in the East End of Glasgow. They're not going to stock a lot of starfruit. They're not going to have a big market for starfruit. But in a previous life, I worked in produce. I was a produce manager, and we got to try all these fantastic things. And I liked starfruit could be quite challenging if it wasn't fully ripe, but I loved the bright, dry, crisp freshness of it when it was nice and ripe. Ginger Genius is saying I'm getting that FOMO feeling coming on. By the way, just remember that tonight is guidance. I'm not going to share anything with you with the idea that you run out and buy any of these bottles. I realise the responsibility that comes, especially when we're speaking about things as expensive as that. However, if you were to walk into someone's house and they said, oh, I like whiskey, and you're trying to gauge it, well, how much do they like whiskey? Do they like whiskey as much as I like whiskey? What kind of whiskey? And that was the shelf that you saw. Springbank Local Barley, Bruichladdich 18, Daftmill, Tobermory, Oloroso Sherry Cask, and Dornoch. I mean, you'd be like, I'm staying here. You can be my new friend. This is what this type of stuff that geeks want. It's in demand. It's pretty scarce. It's therefore expensive, but it's also celebrated and loved. It's handled with care, and it's put together with thought. Lots of sympathy, lots of anxiety going over these releases. They come off a wee bit expensive. So, what if we flip it around? What if we don't go back to what we did in January 2023 and try and make it as cheap as possible, try and get our collection for £199? What if we try and do this lineup as close as possible, but focus on price? We don't change any of the remit that we've given ourselves. We still walk into our imaginary retailer, but we've got responsibilities now. We've got cars and mortgages and kids and challenges and bills and whatever else it is. We've really got to consider where we're putting our money now. But we still want a collection like this. Is this possible? Is it still possible to put together something that the geeks want, but at half the price I've just shared with you? So instead of £115 a bottle, we want to get down to the 50s. Between 50 and £60 a bottle. 57 quid thereabouts is going to be our halfway point, specifically 56.50. That's going to be our target, 57 quid. Can we half the price of this and still get a lineup of whiskies that people want to share and want to put on their shelf, want to talk about? Whiskies that geeks, enthusiasts, whiskey botherers, aficionados, people just into the game, people that's been in for decades would be excited about. Let's see, because I gave that a go too. Jimmy Legg is saying, I only need to see the local barley aquavitae. So he's happy. I've ticked the box for Jimmy. Gene Kelly is saying that would be whiskey nirvana. Whiskey, I know, and I need to check myself, Gene. I know how the fortunate position I'm in. It's great to have you here, Gene. Whiskey with Molly is saying, thought about it, and my ultimate list would be Daftmill 2010 summer. Wonder if that was the one I loved. Mortlach 20, Mortlach 20, just the price of it, though, right? Glen Scotia 25, you're at 500 quid plus now for that. Bunnahabhain 25, similar money. Letric 18, fantastic, great value one in there, Ben. And Glen Cadam 27 Reserva DRF. My goodness. So you really have taken the shackles off, but you've put together some bangers of celebratory whiskey. Ian Bruce is saying it's surprising some people would perceive a whiskey enthusiast to adorn their shelf with Macallan Aquavitae. I think Port Charlotte 10 would appear in the price diluted collection. Ian, you're spot on. You would think, you would imagine, but I think as somebody with just a lot of money and not a lot of time, or not somebody that's geeked out in whiskey, would put it towards the Macallan. But we know that we wouldn't get the value from that. We know that these are expensive whiskies, but every one of them, even the most expensive, even that Bruichladdich at £150, you sip a glass of that and you go, okay, you forgive them the £150. It's unlikely that we're going to do that with a Macallan. I don't know how much you would need to pay to these days to a Macallan in order for it to do what these whiskies behind me do. It's been so long. Oderte is in here. Good to see you. Great selection. And I get the desire to price creep. I know. We do all creep. The price creeps. Currently enjoying a 25-year-old Ardmore from Thompson Brothers. A present from the missus. Wow, that's a good one. Sometimes we can taste the price. They had a couple of 25-year-old Ardmores. I wonder which one it is. We managed to taste one, I think, at the Whisky Club. Fantastic stuff. Mikey Hayes saying, evening, Aquavita, evening, all good to have you in, Mikey. It's always great to welcome you here. And Sachin Kent is in as well, saying Springbank local barley is a unicorn for me. It's a unicorn for me too. I got one last year, but it'd been years since I had one previous to that. I wouldn't even know. I didn't manage to get local barley throughout the COVID years. Seb K, good to have you in from Portugal. He's saying, I like you have found many average bottle price creep up over time, but my engagement with more knowledge has absolutely increased a greater degree, worth the extra pennies. It's not expensive, or in Scots would say dear, and cheap. We have to focus on value. What do we get for the money? And I think that the more money you have, potentially, the more frivolous you can be allowed to be in your life. Good luck to you all. I hope that it happens to you. But I think we start to lose a handle on value. It takes a canny sort of person to hang on to value as things become much more accessible to them. I don't know. Tom Bollinger is celebrating being a member of the Barflies for 12 months, saying can't wait to visit Tobermory this year. I went there at the end of last year. It was a fantastic visit. What a wonderful welcome I got at that distillery. Loved it. Ted Brooks has gifted 10 Aquavita memberships out there. So 10 of you lucky folk, thanks to my pal Ted, who's been a Barfly himself for a long time, is treating some of you to some nice Aquavita Barfly memberships, helping to keep the vPub ad-free. You get your hands on all those wee kind of channel-themed emojis, whiskey glass emojis, that type of thing. And you also get your wee Barfly loyalty badge too. Thank you for your support, and thank you, Ted. Thank you, Tom. Cheers. Bit of dryness on the nose there, I caught. You would not mistake the sherry casting in here. My pal Jimmy Leggage bought me a dram as well. Someone gave me this sample of Coquerin's 17-year-old single cask. I don't know who it was. If you're here, I love you. We have to remember to write on our sample bottles, don't we, Jimmy? We have to write on the label, not who it's to. That's implicit. Is if they have it, it's to them. Who it's from. Because we know that a lot of these samples we're going to be keeping for a certain moment, and it can be all too easy to forget where the source has come from in all of the swapping and sharing. Hoyt Hemphill is in tonight. Good to see you, buddy. What about going with independent bottlers for top distilleries over 15 years? I think that's a whole entire topic, and maybe a different vPub as well. I think it's a great way to think about it and to look at it. Because of my audience, because of the way I've kind of dialed this in tonight, we're sticking tonight, Hoyt, for core range. But I like the fact that you're over there in the West Coast USA talking to me about independent bottling. Berkey's in, good to see you. My go-to 60 quid bottle is Highland Park, cast strength, cracking, value. Stay tuned, Berkey. Good shout. So, how am I going to go into our second list tonight? How are we doing for time? An hour and 23, and we probably need to speed up a wee bit. It's the vPub. Relax. Half. We've got to do what these bottles do to us as much as we possibly can, but half the price. So we're going to call this the value list. Can it be done? This is a rational list. Let's go through the same as we just did. Let's start in Campbelltown. Local barley. You walk into the retailer. You've been a bit unlucky. The last local barley is gone. But when you look, it was 90 quid anyway, and you say, oh, it's probably a bit out of reach. I've got to bring the price down a bit here, but I still want my Springbank fix. There are 3 distilleries in Campbelltown, right? Glengyle and Springbank, both owned by Jane Mitchell. And up the road, we've got Glen Scotia. Glen Scotia has appeared tonight in our first list. But often, to get the good stuff, I opened a Glen Scotia 18 on here really quite recently. I got that at a decent price, 108 quid, I think that was. And I'm very, very glad to have it. But if we talk about value, I don't know how easy it is to find a bottle of Scotch whisky anywhere on this planet that is better value for the experience that comes out of this wee orange bottle. Caveat this. It's hard to get a hold of, but we're playing imaginary games tonight, okay? It's difficult. This is batch by batch by batch by batch variation. Sometimes it's really quite mineralic and briny. Other times it's really quite fruity and tropical. Other times it can be a wee bit more dark and dense and brooding. It never is anything else other than compelling. Where the 12-year-old cask strengths can be a bit challenging for us sometimes, certainly the 15-year-old, the green label one, can be really quite challenging and can really quite it can change up from time to time. That tends to be much more sherry forward. This wee 10-year-old is an absolute darling of a whiskey. You would think that I would become familiar and not maybe jaded or tired of this, but just a wee bit familiar with it over time. But I don't. I've got 2 and maybe 3 of these open right now, and they are all down to this left in the bottle. Springbank has just released I Never Got a 10-year-old. I maybe need to try and see what I can seek out there. If you're like me and going to struggle and need to go out and hunt in the marketplace, even if you're going to secondary, you're not paying much over retail these days for Springbank 10 because there's millions of it out there. And people, over the COVID years, were buying it and hoarding it. Please don't hoard this liquid. If you're hoarding it, hoard it for yourself. This is just gorgeous. And it's 55 quid. If this was available in our imaginary retailer, it was the real world, and if it was available all the time, it would be really difficult for me to put anything else in front of that as Whiskey of the Year. That's how much I love the stuff. Dave the Brave is saying, got 21 of them unopened and 43 opened. You got it. Well, that's an exaggeration, Dave. If it's not, good for you. Whiskey Weekend Drama is saying, hoarding it for a rainy day aquavite. But where is Coquerin 12? Coquerin 12, you'll often hear me raving and raving and raving about Coquerin 12. Coquerin might get a wee mention tonight. Harold, good to have you. Jimmy Legg is saying, I have 3 bottles, but one is always open. Springbank 10. Joe Smith is saying, walked into Good Spirits Co last Saturday and was kicking my height to find one Springbank 10 sitting there begging to be bought. Yes, that's the class of Good Spirits Company. If you time it right, you walk in and it's just going to sit in there shouting at you. Shouting at you. That's what they do. Fantastic stuff. There's going to be a bottle that I picked up from there. Actually, there'll be at least two bottles from Good Spirits Company that I'll be sharing with you tonight. And Dave is saying it's true, so many batches and releases. So Dave, you're obviously a big Springbank fan, and that there's a reason for that. The way, the methodology, the sensibilities, the ethos, the way that they go about their business produces a very, very unique product. And we just can't get enough of it. When we're in a mood for a bit of that Springbank hit, it's very difficult to find anything else. Now things get a wee bit more controversial. For a rational list, for our value list, we go to Islay, our Big 10. Obvious. I've talked about it at length. That would be a fantastic wee bottle to have on a geek shelf. Port Charlotte 10, 50% ABV, even more compelling these days. 60 quid, not bad. Our Big 10, 50 quid, not bad. How about I take Diageo off the naughty shelf after about 3 or 4 years being on the naughty shelf and ask them to walk into the room? What bottle would it be that I welcome into the room? Well, we're on Islay and Diageo, so it can only be Colila or Lagavulin. This is Lagavulin. This is an official bottle of Lagavulin. You know what this is? Because it's not 43% ABV. It's 48% ABV. Unfortunately, with that higher ABV, we don't get any statements about colour or whether they've chosen to not choose to chill filter it. I'm going to suspect that they reserve the right to use colourant, but they don't really put any or much in this at all. And for the chill filtration side of things, you know, everything else is going through the chill filtration equipment, and they probably chill filter this as well, despite the higher alcohol strength. Such is the archaic stupidity and conservatism that exists within not just Diageo, but any big old traditional producer. They haven't really thought about things in a critical way because there isn't a lot of the knowledge or the whiskey passion or whatever in place in the positions that do and make these decisions, and it just doesn't occur to them. But somebody has sympathetically put together a product in the Diageo portfolio that is 48% Lagavulin single malt. Why am I talking about this? Because as much as this company frustrates me for its infuriating, sorry, I'll try and say that, decisions and odd strategies and weird arbitrary pricing and just oddness, they own distilleries that I adore. And I don't just mean, you know, the Taliskers and the Lagavulins and the Clynelish, and I'm talking about the ones that we see less of, the Benromach, the Chianinic, Dilluan, the behind-the-scenes ones that mostly end up in blends. They really do own some of the crown jewels in Scotch whisky production. But here tonight, based on the remit I've given myself and you, I've been able to find a product that fits. The last time I bought this, not this bottle, was £38.50. Special offer in a local supermarket. Based on having a club card, £38.50. I just couldn't believe how good the bottle was. Got through it far too quickly. So lovely. Lots of that peat. 8 years old. Lots of the kind of bright, fruity notes, crisp apple, all of the elegance and things that it's weird how a big, robust whiskey like Lagavulin can possess. I loved it so much. This one was a bit more expensive. This was £44 to buy. Some places have got this up to 60, but almost everywhere has this on special offer. You rarely have to pay more than £50 for a bottle of Lagavulin 8, and at 48% ABV, and I just look at it. Try and park our frustration at Diageo. Never change the aesthetic of this bottle. Never change the aesthetic of Lagavulin 16. It's just, that is Scotch whisky to me. Just fantastic. Again, from a value proposition, leaving prejudices with the other problems that exist behind in Diageo, we just have to embrace that wonderful distillery on Islay. It's fantastic. Love it, love it, love it. I'll give you a wee update of the blend session that we had last week as well. Remember, I picked a Portaleaf Perpetuity in first place. Second place, I don't remember exactly what I picked. It was the Ichiro's Malt and Grain. Fantastic blend, really gorgeous. Third place was Johnny Walker, 51% celebratory blend, 200th anniversary edition. 58 quid, I think it was, 54 quid, something like that. When I went to bed, all the other glasses still had liquid in the glass. The Johnny Walker was dry. It was empty. I poured another dram, and that's the one I took to bed. Call me wasteful. I know I didn't pick, I put it in third place. Third place. But as the night went on, that just sang. That's not going to be around forever, everywhere. If you're going to buy a blend, if you can get your hands on a Portaleaf Perpetuity, fantastic. Ichiro's Malt and Grain, fantastic. But there's a good chance you're going to get a chance to that white label Johnny Walker. I don't even know where I've put it. I think it's over the back. And I'll put it in third place blind tasting on the night. But as I sipped through it, it just became just a wonderful thing. Quite amazing. Stevie O, you superstar, he's purchased his gifts for everyone. 20 Aquavitae memberships for everyone. So that means the membership rises, and a lot of you won't renew. You won't put in payment details, and you won't be a Barfly next month. But you've got a free month thanks to Stevie O. thanks to Ted Brooks. But some of you will stay. And those gestures that those guys are doing, Ted and Stevie, means that over time, the membership, the support within the channel from YouTube grows. I will never need to go to YouTube for advertising revenue. Just, you support me, you've got my back, it never needs to happen. But these guys are also my Patreon supporters as well. The generosity can never be overstated, or my gratitude for the generosity can never be overstated. I'm very, very grateful to all you do for me. Thanks, Stevie O, and thanks, Ted, once more. Stevie O does more than just buy memberships, by the way. Cheers. All right, let's keep moving forward. We're now in the Lowlands, and I mentioned to you earlier a Kingsbarns release. Now, this was interchangeable. The price is roughly the same, so there's going to be another product that I'm going to talk about a wee bit later that we could interchange and switch in and out here. But I've had to commit, and I've had to go with one. And my Lowlands pick for the sensible, rational value list is going to be another Kingsbarns, the same as the opening list we had tonight with the Dream to Dram. This is 46% ABV. This is their newer release. This is called the Ducat, or Ducot, you might call it. And Ducot, that's a kind of pigeon loft thing, or it's like a hut for doos or doves, Scots word for doves, pigeons, and it's a place for them to be housed. Ducat, that's what it's called. There's a lot of, if you ever visit Kingsbarns, you'll know exactly why they've chosen to call it that. This is 46% ABV as well, the same as the Dream to Dram. It's ex-bourbon and STR barriques, but I believe that this time around they have the ability to use refill as well as first fill. That's the only difference between the two. Going backwards and forwards between them, this Ducat, despite the fact that they'll put refill in this is a darker whiskey. And there's a wee bit more kind of a darker fruit theme on here as well. We've got a wee bit more orange and citrus comes into things, a wee bit more zest. It just feels like they've moved on a bit and they've got some mature stocks or some more mature stocks that's going into the vatting now. It's come along a wee bit. It's not as young and bright and fresh and outdoors as maybe the Dream to Dram was. But in doing so, they've lost a wee bit of the creaminess that maybe came from the malt. So it is a slightly different prospect, but it's still absolutely delicious. And at 45 quid, it's geek whiskey. There's a story behind this. There's a renaissance behind this. It's fully natural. You can talk about the casks. You can talk about the story, that how the distillery came around with Doug Clement and all of that stuff. It's almost shouldn't exist. Obviously, it's Weems family owned now, but that wasn't the case originally. It almost shouldn't exist, right? Graham Malt is saying, is that a smoogging 12-year-old estate barley over your shoulder? Yes, it is. This is gifted to me by Per himself, who was in Scotland recently, and obviously in his bag he was carrying a wee gift for me, but I'm going to work out a way to pay him back. Don't worry about that, James, but well spotted. Lowlander is saying, Wook used to be generous with gifting memberships. It's a shame that they're bankrupt these days. Wook is still a patron of mine. He's still here. I guess that he's doing other things of an evening other than being far too generous with me. So I hope there's no bankruptcy involved there. Cheers, Lowlander. Seb is saying D2D, so Dream to Dram and Ducat. He's saying fantastic examples of that traditional Lowland flavour profile, but despite being a tad younger, I preferred the Dream to Dram. Both delicious though. Yeah, I wonder if it's just that wee bit of a kind of the youthfulness, the creaminess, the more kind of maltiness that came through on the slightly lighter product. This is the Ducat that's in the glass right now. No, it isn't. This is the other one I'm going to talk about a wee bit later. This is the Ducat, the one I opened up tonight. And this, it's our wonderful sherry cask Tobermory. Okay, let's keep going. Still so much bottles to go through. Not so many, we're getting there. Speyside. I know a lot of you are going to be expecting me to hold up Benromach. The night is still young. This is my pick for keeping it real 10-year-old Glenallachie. This is their cask strength. Do you remember during the COVID years how difficult this was to get? How we were all helping each other, sending links to the places that had it still in stock, how quickly it was being snapped up. Well, this has become a ubiquitous thing on the shelf now. You can normally go into a retailer, there's a good chance that they're going to have Glenallachie's 10-year-old cask strength on the shelf. Some of them might even have a previous batch. It's fantastic to see. And I think that I tend to lean towards that cheaper 8-year-old that we talked about in the first lineup tonight. I just think it's a much more accessible, easier product. The cask strength takes a wee bit more patience. It needs a wee bit more kind of water. It needs a wee bit more kind of opening up and air and time to stretch and breathe in the glass. It's maybe arguably a wee bit more of a cask story as well. If you notice, these 10-year-old cask strengths have just become really quite dark over the years, which is fine. It's exactly what's needed to do to this kind of inherited spirit. But now we're getting close to the point that Billy Walker and the team there have got their own mature whiskey now, and we should start to see a lot more of that coming out. A complete rebrand. This doesn't look like this anymore. This is the old branding, of course, but this is the most recent batch I have. And even if you pick up the newer branding today, sub 60 quid, typically about £55, and it's easy to put forward to appease our whiskey enthusiasts in our value rational list. We're up in the Highlands now. Where are we going to go in the Highlands? Well, we're going to do a wee uncorking here. Where I don't think we've mentioned this distillery tonight. Maybe some of you have, and I just haven't picked it up. But this is a Good Spirits company pickup. And I could have picked multiple bottles from this distillery. Right up Enthusiast Avenue. A huge variety from them, whether you're talking about regular ABV with fattings and trying to stay consistent, whether you're talking about cask strength, whether you're talking about sherry cask, whether you're talking about ex-wine cask, whether you're talking about I'm trying to think, Sauterne, fun releases and things like that as well. Excuse the tissue noise if that's noisy. Just throw it out the way on the floor. Of course, I'm not going to get through a geek session on the vPub without talking about Ardnamurchan. It's been quite a while since I've spoken about these folk. You might remember the winter of 2022 into 2023, was it? Or 23 into 24? No, I think it was 22 into 2023. They brought out the Madeira cask, their first Madeira cask release, at a time when I was really, and I still am, super in tune with and excited and loving what Madeira casks do to Scotch malt whiskey. I really love the style. It's probably, potentially my favourite kind of, let's say, what's it called? Symbiotic thing that happens, you know, sherry, whiskey, bourbon whiskey, Scotch whiskey, that type of thing. I love it. But the symbiosis of, I don't know what it is about Madeira wine. I don't know why, whatever it does to the wood that's used there and Scotch whiskey, I seem to be drawn to it. I seem to love it a lot. And this is coming from somebody who loves bourbon maturations. I only picked this up this week. It's been around for a wee while now. It's been out for 2 or 3 weeks now. They teased this for a while. This is batch 2 of the Madeira cask release. Great specs as well. 52% ABV they've gone for on this one. £68, I think I paid £67.50, something like that. Been dying to see how this one's going to turn out. I'm invested in this already because of how much I love the original one, but I'm not going to review or judge this tonight because it's a neck pour. I'm opening it in front of you right now. But come on. At some point, we had to see Ardnamurchan in the lineup tonight. I've got 3 lists to share with you. The wish list, all the shackles removed. The rational value list, let's do the same, but focus fully on price. And then finally, my list, my 6, what would I pick? This had to show up at some point. That could have been the AD, could have been the cask strength, could have been the Paul Lanois, could have been the Sauterne, it could have been the Midgie, it could have been any Ardnamurchan. But there has to be some representation of what that distillery is and what it's doing in there. It makes me super excited for the future as the product becomes more and more mature. Jens Roger Christofferson. My Norwegian pal Jens, and I don't know if I've ever pronounced your name properly, buddy, but it's good to see you in here. Slancheroy is saying, finally got time for a vPub visit again. Just booked this year's whiskey trip, and he's going to Campbelltown, and he's bought me a generous dram to market as well. Thank you, Jens. It feels like you've been in here since the beginning, way back in the 2017, 2018 days. Once upon a time, your name was Roger Christofferson, right? Wonderful to have you, and thank you for your generous dram. Cheers, buddy. I'll leave the Ardnamurchan for a second. I'll raise this for you. Cheers. Brian Cabayas is saying, hello, Barflies, morning. Tea at work. I will catch the replay when I can. Can't wait to see Connell or Alex here in Melbourne. Madeira too must be glorious. Well, that's what's in the glass, buddy. I'll let you know my first impressions in a second, but thank you in the meantime for your generous dram, Brian, and all your support over the years. Cheers. Connell and Alex and the entire team at Ardnamurchan are just absolutely terrific folk. Very, very easy to get on with and spend time with. It's great to have them. They teased me with this Madeira, knowing how much I liked batch one. So this, the Tobermory on the label talked about nutty. This is nutty. Almost like a fruit nut, like a fruit mix, like a trail mix. Like a Florentine. There's a sweetness here too. You know what a Florentine is? You know, one of those kind of, those chocolate things with the fruit and nut layer on top. Okay, wow. So I'm looking for the Ardnamurchan thing here. I'm looking for the coastal, looking for the salt, the brine, the outdoors. But no, I've got this kind of nutty, fruity thing going on. Some spice, some freshly sanded sawn type sandalwood, cedarwood thing. Not sawmill, but kind of a much more aromatic kind of, like a warm wood. I was looking for peat. There's no peat smoke on this that I can detect. I suffer from peat blight, as you know. Very inviting, very cozy, very warm. Not quite as autumnal and mulchy as that Tobermory, but of a similar theme. Cheers, everyone. There's an acidity. That brininess, that metallic thing is absolutely there. It's on the palate. You might not be able to pick it up so much on the nose, but it's there. You've got this really searing, sharp development right in the centre. That very unique Ardnamurchan spirit. Dry. Less nutty, more wood spice, oak spice. Warming. There's a fragility, a brittleness to it on the finish. A drying finish. Sour fruit. Sharp apple. Fizz. 52% ABV is here. Moorish as hell. See that drying sense. What's that really brittle candy? It's almost like a sugar snap thing. On the finish, it just kind of evaporates. It just disappears. Means that you immediately want to go back in again. That lovely drying kind of Moorish sensation. Super grippy. Again, that Madeira cask, it's not exactly like my memory of batch one, but that Madeira cask thing is just, it's always kind of got that warm spice. So Moorish. Great start. Fantastic. Caveat again, it's just out the bottle. Neck pour. Good chance I'll be pouring another one of those before my bed. Doodle the Drama is saying the Ardnamurchan that just lodged in my brain and I can find in pretty much every bottle is bin juice. The best kind of bin juice, especially the unpeated ones, love it. So maybe that's something like the sour fruit thing I got there. Big blast of sour fruit. There's a kind of searing acidity that happens. It's almost like when you sip whiskey. I know not everyone thinks like this, but I sometimes see like a shape or whatever. But it's like this peak. It's a tight, sharp, searing sourness and a lovely thing. Bin juice is a difficult one for me. We've got one of those countertop things that we keep the food waste in. And if we don't empty that out in a couple of days, the bin juice in that can be horrendous, Arnie. Horrendous. This I wouldn't use that as a tasting note for this one. The best kind of bin juice. Good one, Arnie. Good one. Okay. Finally, and I don't know who it was that brought it up. I wish I'd remembered, but somebody. Okay, we're in the islands now. We've split the Highlands up into mainland, Ardnamurchan for this pick. We're in the islands now. And I'm quite surprised that there's even a product from this producer, let alone this distillery. But it's here, and I think it deserves to be here. This one's been around a wee while. I've not been going back and visiting this one, but I keep forgetting how good it is. How good it is from a value proposition when I bought this. And it's gone up in price since. I think I picked up mine when it was on offer. It has gone up a wee bit in price since, but there is still a Highland Park out there that we can connect with, and it's worth our attention. And right now, it is Highland Park. Now I need to work out which batch this is. This is batch 2. I think we're up into batch 3 and potentially 4 now. I'm not very sure. But this is their old branding, of course. It's just been updated. They haven't brought out a new branding of the cask strength yet. This is still a core range expression from Highland Park, one of the Edrington distilleries. We don't get a lot of opportunity to talk about Highland Park on the vPub, but this is one that we can talk about. This is at 63.9% tear-jerking ABV. It's because of the way that Highland Park fill. They fill in these oftentimes really quite good quality sherry casks. At higher fill strength, higher than the standard industry standard 63.9 from the receiver. 63.5. This bottle is 63.9. Now, we don't know what age it is, but we imagine it's somewhere in the order of 7-8 years old, that type of thing. Certainly lots of flavour. There is a lot of jaggy shoulders and knees on this cask strength version, but it's not to the point that it's challenging. It is absolutely delicious and drinkable. Lots of tobacco, lots of kind of dried fruit, lots of rich fruit. Does do well with a wee spot of water in it as well. 63.9% ABV. It's quite spicy, right? But I picked this up in the 50s, £58. It's regularly on offer. Retail tends to be 70 to 80 for this. I think you're about 76, 78 pounds for this just now. But we've got a cask strength Highland Park officially from the distillery that's supported and available. This makes it into my rational value list. So it's quite a step change, isn't it? Local barley to 10-year-old. We've got a Diageo Lagavulin in here. We've got a Kingsbarns. We've got a Glenallachie 10 cask strength. An Ardnamurchan Madeira cask at 52%. Switch that out with lots and lots of other delicious Ardnamurchan whiskies. And to finish off, Highland Park. How are we doing for prices on this list? Well, I can share with you. Our value list, prices here, Springbank 10 roughly 55, Lagavulin 8 44 I've put in here. Okay, you can buy it for 44 online right now. I bought mine for 38.50. It's typically in the 50s. I put in 44 as being somewhere about the median of it all. Lagavulin 8 is regularly on offer, 44. Kingsbarns retail 45, Glenallachie 10 retail 55, Ardnamurchan is about 65.70, I think. I paid 67.50 for mine. Sorry, I'm rounding up to 68. That's a nudge high for Ardnamurchan. Highland Park cask strength 76. That's based on retail today. Much like the Lagavulin 8-year-old, you will get it regularly on offer. That gives us a total of £343. So our average price for the value list, our target was 57, remember, 115 was our opener average bottle price. So to get it down to half, 57 was our target. And wouldn't you know it, I've done it. I've managed to half it. And that happened incidentally. I wasn't picking bottles in order to try and meet that price. It just worked out there. I wanted to come up with something that was somewhere in the neighbourhood of half that original price of £115 a bottle. These are the ones that I ended up picking after I selected the ones that I wanted for my own list, which is coming up next. And it ended up being, you know, we're rounding up and rounding down here and there, but it ended up being half. So here we find ourselves in a situation. We've gone from the £33 a bottle from that list back, and actually, as we know, it was only 5 bottles. We've clarified that mix up. We've gone from the £40, £43, £44 a bottle today for the original list, average bottle price, and then we're removing all the shackles. We've shot away up to almost 3 times the price, £115 average bottle price. But then with a wee bit of steadying the ship and focus again and going in and still trying to find things that geeks want to sit back and drink, we've managed to half the price. Now you walk into your friend's house now, your geek's friend's house now, and you're trying to work out what kind of level he's at whiskey and things, and you're excited, and you look and you see a Springbank 10 on the shelf and a Lagavulin 8. You see a Kingsbarns, you see a Glenallachie 10 cask strength, you see an Ardnamurchan special, and you see Highland Park's cask strength. You know you're in good company. You know you're going to have a nice time. You know you're speaking to an enthusiast, somebody who really knows their stuff and is collecting these bottles, not because of the brands that they are, but the flavour that they produce, the flavour that they offer. One more list to go before we quiz at the end. Sean is saying, currently have a 13-year-old Highland Park from SMWS. Sorry, Sean, I'm going to try and catch your comment again. Sorry, buddy. There you are. Currently have a 13-year-old from HP from SMWS in the glass at 62.8%. Ex-bourbon hoggies, a touch on the hot side. Ooh, but delicious. Okay, so you're having to temper it a wee bit, 62.8 with a wee bit of water. Like I said, that official bottle also benefits from the same. There's my pal Eric, and Eric Wait Whiskey Studies. Where are you now, Eric? Are you out in San Francisco? Where are you these days? I'm drinking right now Highland Park 12, Nice of Brodgar. He said it's a 46.8%, 46% ABV, but it's only available at the distillery. So you picked it up as a wee souvenir and you're enjoying it this evening. Eric, it's nice to have you in. I hope you're keeping well, buddy. How you doing? Danny Hebington is saying, that kid will never grown up and left home by the time the next recycled review comes out. Okay, I'm getting some serious pressure. Listen, there's a break coming up. The Easter break's coming up, right? And there's going to be a vPub missing. There's probably going to be an opportunity for me to get some extra content out there for you. No promises, though. Do my best. Whiskey Weekend Ram Harrow saying, Kilkerran 8, Ardbeg 10, Glasgow. Agree on the Glenallachie, Clynelish 14, and Arran 10 Aquavitae. So a great wee list there. Campbelltown, Isla, Lowlands. He's going for Glasgow for the Lowlands, Ardbeg for the Isla, Glenallachie for the Speyside, Clynelish 14 for the Highland, and Arran 10. Fantastic. Great list, Harrow. Sachin is saying, I miss Is It a Speyside? Has it been put to rest? Yes, Sachin, it has, buddy. The reason is that when we did Is It a Speyside back in the day, you know, we've probably got about 20 more distilleries. And the core range releases that we used to rely upon, we could still do it. I'm making excuses a wee bit, but the core ranges that we used to rely on became really quite transient. And yeah, I need to have a think about it. And it was kind of hard to set it up and get people on live and the audio and stuff. And maybe I've become a wee bit complacent. Maybe I've become a wee bit lazy. I don't know, Sachin. It's nice that people enjoyed that, though. Pete Head is saying, I remember a great SNWS Highland Park that Sevy shared in Campbelltown last year. Sevy tends to have his finger on the pulse for the good stuff, right, Frank? And Justin is saying, Sachin, I'm afraid it is the number of offerings and blurry definition of core range has made it very difficult for Aquaviti. That's a nicer way to say it than I just attempted, Justin. Danny Hevenden is saying, hi, I was just messing, mate. You take all the time you need for the recycled review he's talking about. Thank you, buddy. Right. So we've got our shackles off list, our wish list. We've got our value list where we've tried to dial it in, and we've got a huge difference on price. £115, we would all agree, for the majority of us, is an average bottle price that's far too high. It's just too high. That's in the realm of dream stuff, unicorn stuff, once a year stuff, special birthdays, occasional Christmases, that type of thing. But down at an average bottle price of £57, that's kind of doable in 2025. It's not easy for all of us to find that at those prices all of the time. But where we've come from from our £30, £35, £40 bottles, entry-level stuff, to go up into the whiskey botherer layers and exploration levels, to have this lineup, it's looking pretty good. Things like Springbank aside, of course, you're not always going to get it, but it's still available. And if you want to pick up in secondary, you're not paying too much more over retail. How about my compromise? What do I pick? I just go on based on my gut, my favorites, my bias, my moment, my mood, everything. Well, there's a good chance I'm going to be picking a lot of these things that I've already shared with you, but there's a lot of other things that's been left on the shelf. Very Roy-focused things, Aquaviti-focused things, things that I really, really have grown to love over the years of sharing whiskey with you on the vPub. And that's what I'm going to share next. Black Fen is in. Good to see you, buddy. I've still got a bottle in the back of my stash in case it's an Is It a Speyside ever comes back by a distillery that's never been included so far. Conrad, we might invite you back on one day for a wee special edition. Is It a Speyside? Justin Mann is saying, I'm a distillery is a good replacement. Wouldn't you agree? So I'm a distillery is obviously the thing that we're doing at the end of the Dramface podcast, which we're also a wee bit delinquent on. It's all on my shoulders, isn't it? I'm just lazy now. Fantastic. Arthur is saying, I have my bottle of HP Cask Strength, same as yours, bought 3 years ago for equivalent of £50 here in Poland. Fantastic price for it. Are you enjoying it? Is it open yet? Jimmy Legg is saying, doesn't the Malt Whisky Yearbook define the core range stuff? You could use that for Is It a Speyside? Lazy bones. It doesn't actually define the core range stuff. It's almost beyond definition. I've missed a wee. Oh, I can't miss this because I missed it last week. Peter Lee's come in and bought me a dram. Good evening. What have I missed? Was visiting Kwang Tung tonight. Arnie Doodle the Dram was visiting Kwang Tung tonight and walked out overjoyed. Peter Welsh had the best day at Springbank. A few Barflies will be happy to see Denise and I. I was specifically absolutely happy to see your Arnie Doodle the Dram's artwork of you and Denise and Amy. I love it. I need a copy of it. That's how much I love it. It was an emotional thing to see. Peter Lee, thank you so much for your generous dram. Nice to have you in, buddy. I'm just going to add a wee like to all of those. All right, let's get on with the list. Highland Hamish is saying to me, Justin, from a tasting at Granton and Spey Golf Club, Starry Sky and -5 on the drive home to Inverness, which means if you're doing the driving, Highland Hamish, you weren't able to do a lot of the dramming. Maybe, I suspect, you were the host tonight, buddy. Nice to have you in. I hope you're comfortable and home safe. All right. My list. Now, this is me. £115 down to £57. What's the average bottle price going to be for my recommendations? This has to get a mention. It simply has to. And I could have picked its 16-year-old. I could have picked its 12-year-old. But for tonight, I'm going to pick this one because it's cracking. I'm going to pick Glengyle. I'm going to pick Kilkerran. I think it's one of the very few producers that I've talked about as either Whiskey of the Year, Producer of the Year, Product of the Year, whatever, multiple times. I can't. It's important that I share my bias with you, my favourites, the things I love most, so that you know when I'm talking things up, you know, oh, well, he's going to say those things so positively because of how much he loves it. But we also have to embrace the fact that we all potentially can suffer from the same bias, the same favoritism, the same things that we love more than others. If Roddy was in here with me tonight and one of them was a Royal Bracla and the other one, you know, they could taste very, very similar in terms of profile, style, quality, whatever, but he'd lean towards his favourite, you know, his Royal Bracla. And I know it's tongue-in-cheek and things, but I use it as an example. It's part of whiskey. It's part of our human condition. It's part of what's inbuilt with us. We all have favourites. I love this liquid. There's a good chance you give me a lineup of blind whiskies. I feel strongly that there's a good chance that maybe if I didn't pick out the Kilkerran, I think sometimes I could, I think I'd be able to tell you that I loved it. Still, I just seem to get on very, very well with this malt whiskey. This happens to be this year's cask strength. This is the 55.6% ABV, but I've got other Kilkerran cask strengths up there, just out of earshot. I've got a 15-year-old bourbon cask up there. It's a slightly different release. I can see a sherry and I can see a port, old cask releases. Then they're all kind of going down. What's that one there? It's another sherry cask. I've got 2 sherry cask releases up there. I love this stuff. The more bottles that I have up there, the more bottles that I have open, the more that the levels kind of stay up. But of course, the problem is they all get very low at the same time. But this is always going to be recharged because Kilkerran from Jenny Mitchell from Campbelltown tends to hang around a wee bit longer than the Springbanks. And for me, it's not that it's any more delicious. It just seems to fit with me so much more. I'll never forget that it was Kilkerran 12 that launched this channel. It was a couple of drams of Kilkerran 12 that gave me the courage to publish the first ever video. And for that alone, I'm forever grateful. And a wee nudge by the Whiskey Rev right at the same time. We're in Campbelltown. No way you're getting out of here tonight. You're not getting out of the vPub without letting me talk about Kilkerran. Just has to happen. Whiskey with Molly, celebrating being a member of the Barflies for 41 months. Always happy to be here and spend time with you. Ben, it's always a privilege to have you here too. You're not just a good guy to be in the chat and things. You're just a good guy to have in our community, a good guy to have around. Kind, considerate, thoughtful. Just love it. Thank you, buddy, for being here. And my pal Jimmy from Canada, celebrating being a Barfly with his pink Barfly for 60 months. Kilkerran 8-year-old cask strength bourbon is the best, and he's capitalized it. I have done something to ingratiate myself with Jimmy Legg tonight. That's good going. We'll take it. Jimmy, thank you for your support over the last 60 months. Amazing. I'm going to open something tonight. I've got a few lovely drams in front of me already. I've got 6 empty glasses. Sorry, I've got 6 glasses in front of me. Only 2 remain empty. But I think I'm only going to open one more bottle tonight, and then I'll finish the rest of the delicious, high-quality, great whiskies that I have with you as we go through the quiz at the end and after the vPub tonight. So let's get through them. We're now going to move over to Islay. This is the Royalist. Let's see if you can guess what I'm going to pick for my geek pleaser, my whiskey enthusiast's pick for Islay. What we're going to have. Jimmy's saying, I've been supporting you all my life, Aquaviti. I just didn't know it. You were destined to be here. We were destined to meet here, weren't we? Grainer Malt James is saying, one of your early videos evangelizing about Kilkerran 12 prompted me to buy my first bottle in January 2019. A month after my first Longmorn 16 began the whiskey journey. Now he's knee-deep in earnest. Justin Wan is saying, Aquaviti, Ardnamurchan. Justin, of course it is. It's my whiskey of the year. It's my whiskey of the year. The bottle on the shelf over here, this stuff is fantastic. This is the Society release. I'm halfway through my second bottle of the inaugural. I should have bought more. It's stunning whiskey for its age. And this is just the wee humble Infinite Loch. This is the bog standard core range at 55 quid. 50% ABV, all fully natural, everything we want. The only thing that we need more than the bottle specs is for the liquid to be delicious. This is just delicious. And I know that some of you doubt me on this. You say, oh, the Infinite Loch, It wasn't as good as the inaugural. The society bottling is better. Pour this next to anything else that you enjoy from Islay. You might not pick it as your favourite. Even if the thing you pour it next to is better than this will overperform. This will do way better than you imagine. I think there's a wee bit of bias at play here with this Infinite Loch, and I'm going to pour it in a glass. To try it, I've got a wee empty clean glass. I'm only going to uncork one more. I only need one more clean glass, so I'm going to pour a wee bit of this. I think this outperforms. I think what we do is we go into this saying, oh, this is their core range. Oh, I can smell it's a wee bit younger. It's a wee bit more malty. Yeah, it's not as good as the inaugural. And we kind of, they're suffering from how amazing the inaugural was, right? But now they've dropped the price by 20 quid a bottle from the inaugural, putting out a core range there with the same specs. And they've put out something that's just a lovely fermentation room note to this. Clearly the fermentation is at the core here. So there's not only just that kind of ripe fruit thing, but there's a nice kind of doughy, bready, and it's not yeasty, but it's a wee bit yeasty, but there's a nice kind of sense of, and it brings a density and a depth and a quality that betrays the youthfulness of this. It doesn't betray, that helps not mask or cover up, but helps it behave in a way that's more mature than its years would suggest. By the way, this is made up by mostly minimum 5-year-old stock as well. Oh, it's unique. It's Islay whiskey. It's got a bit of Islay in there, but it's got a nice, fresh, fruity sweetness to it as well. Like I say, you're in that fermentation room there as well. There's malt. It's very well behaved. Just how you go into your friend's house and they tell you that they're into whiskey, and you say, well, I'm into whiskey too, and you see a bottle of Kilkerran and a bottle of Ardnamurchan sitting next to each other, again, you're in for a good time. Ardnamurchan has done it right, says Ben. Well presented, affordable bottles from a new distillery. They have me. I'm buying lots. I absolutely am in. I love it. Jimmy Legacy saying, even I love what I've had from Ardnamurchan. Makes Ardnamurchan taste like dishwater. Don't be rude. I've just been raving about how much we all love Ardnamurchan, Jimmy. You're welcome to your opinion, but don't make me read it out. You're welcome to your opinion, buddy. Gene Kelly's saying, so glad that you suggested I pursue Ardnamurchan when I visited. Effort rewarded, such a great dram. Yeah, and I know that we're at risk of kind of hyperbole, hyping things up a wee bit. Hype is when we artificially elevate the standard of something. But no, I'm not. My only duty, my only responsibility, my only loyalty is to you. None of these producers pay me a penny. None of them give me a discount. Even if they gave me a discount, I would say, no thanks. I don't want the discount. My community look after me. My only priority, I am absolutely independent. I can say and do what I like, and long may that last, is to you. Danny Hebington is saying, I had a couple of drams of that the other night. If this is a core range quality that continues, then it's exactly what we're asking for in whiskey, surely. Fantastic. A. Martins is in. He's saying, I like the Ardnamurchan, but I like the Kilchoman better. It's okay for us to have our preferences, but I think we can all objectively get behind how good a core range product that is. Absolutely delicious for anybody coming into whiskey and trying whiskey for the first time. It's remarkably good at masking its 50% ABV, by the way. Remarkably good. But also fantastic for just I've been struck as I glanced at that there, how oily. It's just, I don't know the last time I swirled that round so high in the glass. I don't know if you can see, it's just stuck, just hanging up on the side of that glass. It's just remarkable, great quality. Malt whiskey. Jimmy Legacy saying, I'll pay you for reading that comment. It was worth it. Thank you, Jimmy. Cheeky bugger. Sean Costa is saying, for 70 quid, the inaugural release is a banger. Can't wait to taste the latest sherry cask release. You and me both, Sean. You know, I want them to kind of not get too carried away, not to blitz the market with lots of exciting new releases that give a big transient spike of excitement and then just kind of sit around for a while. That you need to find a balance. You need to not do a kind of Waterford thing where the market's just saturated. You can't even keep up as a whiskey geek. You need an anchor. You need a hard point to be able to work out what they're all about. Okay, a few more bottles to share with you. We're now in the lowlands, and there's no way that you're going to work out the left field pick. I'm going to pick from the lowlands, but I'll give you a clue and tell you that it's heavily peated. Justin Wan is saying, going to try again for the lowlands. Glasgow Isla cask finished. That would have been the absolute perfect pick. Love it, love it, love it, Justin. But it's a special edition. In fact, it's defined by the small batch range. It's a small batch release from them. Too small, too niche. I need something that's available to most folk. And actually something that is as compelling as that Isla cask release. Mike Molass is saying, my distributor indicated Ardnamurchan is on its way to my market. Looking forward to trying it. Buy it. Just go, Mike. Just do it. You're going to love it. Dave the Brave. How does it compare to the inaugural? I only tried that one so far. Completely different. Much lighter. Much less cask influence in the Infinite Loch. I would say it's almost like Ardnamurchan light, but not on flavour or engagement or anything. On cask influence. The Infinite Loch lets a wee bit more of the spirit through. It's a wee bit cleaner, a wee bit purer, a wee bit more kind of restrained and balanced. The inaugural was a big, loud, grab your attention thing, but it was also still quite balanced. I thought it's difficult. Again, David Brave, just give it a wee go. At 55 quid, you can't go wrong. Justin Wan is saying, change my mind. Lag Kilmorey, says Justin. Now, you guessed before, didn't you? You guessed the Ardnamurchan. Ben Demon Hunter, it's an okay to have preference. It's okay or A-O-A-K. Okay, why to have preferences, Roy? Ben Demon Hunter, it's good to have you in. I'm trying to work out what the joke is there. Sometimes my brain is running a wee bit slow, buddy. Berkey is saying, thank you for this evening, Roy. Another great topic, and I'll pick up the rest on catch-up. Hey, Berkey is leaving for the quiz at the end. He's not going to join us tonight, but that's okay. Berkey, now that you're picking the rest on catch-up, good luck with the quiz at the end. Should be a doable for you tonight. Let me know how you got on. Okay. Justin Wan knocks it out the park again. Lag Kilmorey. Bit of a left field pick, and I know a lot of you are going to be going, wah! Lag is from Arran. It's an islander. It's an islander. Hitting the alert. Listen, Lag identify themselves as a lowlander. In the Malt Whisky Yearbook, they're identified as a lowlander. In Charlie's Wikipedia, the latest edition, I think he suggests that they're an islander. Jury's out in terms of what, but I'm just going to go with it tonight. If you disagree with my pick as this is a lowlander, here's the other one that I poured earlier tonight, and it's in the glass as we went live tonight. Here's a wee one we don't talk about much at all. It's a perfect example of a fantastic vatting for a core range. This is the Lindor's 1494. I know that it's written in Roman numerals there. You can see here, but it's the 1494. Based on, Friar John Core and the 8 balls of malt for which to make whiskey for the first ever written record of whiskey distillation in Scotland. Okay, that's what it's all about. This is a core range product at £45. It's using a wee bit of wine barriques, it's using a wee bit of sherry and mostly bourbon. £45, all natural, fully integrity forward. It does tell us here, bourbon, sherry, wine barrique, barley region, Fife, 45 quid. I don't talk about this enough, but I poured this tonight. You walk into that friend's house and he's only got this. This is the only whiskey that he has. You're in good hands. So if you disagree with my pick of Lag, then replace it with Lindor's, because they both deserve it. This Lag is a big peat bomb. But more than anything, what this Tobermory does, and I think even more than the Coricravi core range, which is more sherry leaning, what this does is it hits you. This is like lag spirit a wee bit stripped back, and that thick oiliness that you have to lick off your teeth, that kind of big palate filling development where it's almost gloopy, if you wanted to describe it as such a thing. This betrays that. It's wonderful stuff. 55 quid, I think. I think I've listed most of the prices down here. What am I picking tonight for the lag? 48 quid. So the prices of these two are virtually identical as well. Sorry if that's a cop-out. It is not meant to be. If you disagree with me picking lag as a Lowlander pick, then remember, Lindors is making fantastic product. Somebody asked me recently if I was in a huff with them because they had an Aquavitae product. It's not a whiskey, it's a liqueur. Not at all. If there's anybody that's allowed to use the term Aquavitae, it's Lindors Abbey, believe me. It's quite funny. Ben is saying, unfortunately, Aquavitae, the best Lindors, is only available to 1494 members due to the lack of volume of special releases. It's going to be widely available, and it's going to change people's opinion. Ben, I look forward to it. Listen, I've loved the Friar John Core releases. I've loved the specials. I've loved the things that I've been able to connect with. I often feel a wee bit of guilt that I don't talk about Lindors Abbey enough. Stuff that they're doing there deserves to be talked about. And the ethics, the ethos, the sensibility, the integrity, it just needs to be talked about. Dominic Fife is saying, Fife is a kingdom. How long before it's a region? I don't think we need that. I think regions are becoming less. It's nice to have what we have today. It's nice to categorize. But if we overcomplicate it, and snap things off and break things off, put it this way, Dominic, I'm very, very grateful. As a Lowlander living in Glasgow, I'm very grateful to have Fife as part of our region. They fortify it significantly. It's amazing. We've got Inchdairney, we've got Daftmill, we've got Kingsbarns, we've got others. Edenmill. What else am I forgetting? My goodness. Okay, a couple more to go through tonight. We've been to the Lowlands. We're now going to head up to Speyside, and a big sigh of relief. We've got one empty glass, and it's going to be poured by this distillery. It's going to be filled by this distillery. Of course, I'm talking about Benromach. And the one that I want to recommend to you, because I'm halfway through this bottle, and I've rinsed various other cask strength Benromachs in the past as well, and enjoying every single one of them. Different vintage, different age, tends to be around about 8, 9, 10-ish years. I think they're all more or less 10 years old. This is the 2012 cask strength batch 3. Roll over to the side and it tells us it was distilled 2012, bottled 2022, so 10 years. Natural colour, it says. Non-chill filtered, it says. Bottling of 21 casks. Benromach's just giving us everything. They're giving us everything. Unless it's their core range, of course. Their core range is still a wee bit wanting. I can't help it. I have to just get it out. If I hadn't had a Benromach in this lineup tonight, you would have created. You would have complained, I cannot believe you went through 3 lists and Benromach didn't get a mention. It was always going to get a mention. But here's a brand new one tonight, and here is their geek product. This is the Virgin Oak. It's not brand new in terms of the market, but it's brand new to me. 55 quid for this one. The cask strength's a bit more expensive than that. For cask strength, you're up in the 70s now. It's gone up a wee bit in price recently. But these contrast series are similar specs to the cask strength in terms of transparency. It tends to be lower ABV. This is 46% ABV, this one. Distilled 2013, bottled 2024, so minimum 10 years. Could be an 11-year-old product here. But what we've got here is Virgin American Oak. Matured. Remember when we talked about the difference between finishing and maturation? Let's read this out. It says, this limited edition release has been matured in Virgin Oak casks. It results in a fragrant, I'll tell you how it results. I want to for it to work out with me. So it's just going to long list and said, okay, it's going to just goes into tasting notes. Aged, it says this is an age statement product. Aged 10 years in oak casks. I will do my best to get the camera to focus on that so you can see there a tiny writing at the bottom, aged 10 years in oak casks, but the gold plate there, bottled 2024, distilled 2013. So this is a 10-year-old product. Now, the reason we love these contrasts releases, they do dilute them, 46% ABV typically. But my goodness, they're really playing with us. Barley varieties, maturation styles, how they cooper the casks from kiln dried or air dried. We've got peat smoke sherry. We've got sherry without the peat smoke. We've got organic varieties. This contrast series is really giving Benromach an avenue to go out and stretch their legs and be really quite experimental. I'm going to be going into this 10 years in virgin casks. I know what to expect, but this has been Benromach. Are they going to bring something different? So, a big whack of... So Benromach is known for being a little bit kind of off-piste industrial, oily rag, a wee bit farmy at times, a wee bit challenging. I didn't get that. What I got a big whack of was really sweet vanilla pod. Almost like... it's the dessert, not creme brulee. I need to come back. Oh, what's the Italian thing? The vanilla. Oh, Jesus, I'm so old. It's like a blancmange texture. It's an Italian, maybe Alberto's still in here. Anyway, the vanilla flavored version of that. Very strong vanilla. Butterscotch, toffees, Werther's Originals, Angel Delight. Vanilla butterscotch. Lots and lots and lots of it. Lots of wood, lots of oak. Trying to find some fruit beyond it. Kind of sweet citrus. Clementines, freshly peeled clementines, sweet clementine. Okay, just as soon as you start thinking about it, you unlock it, you start to find it. I think quite obvious notes. I'm looking for something to challenge me. Benromach typically does that. Let's have a wee sip, see if we can do it on the palate. Really wanted to taste this alongside the Deanston Virgin Oak, a whiskey that I'm a fan of. They've got a cask strength version as well, the Virgin Oak version with a cask strength. Panna Cotta, Bruce. Yes. That was the dessert I'm talking about, that kind of set dessert. So there's a one that sticks in my head was really strongly vanilla flavored to the point that they had veins of kind of almost like a vanilla caramel sauce running through it. That's what it reminded me of. It's like a toffee sauce, an ice cream sauce. A wee bit of the almondy marzipan cake icing thing too. So you sense what I'm getting here. There's lots of kind of sweet dessert, but sugary sweet dessert toffee things happening here. Is it bourbon-esque? It is a wee bit bourbon-esque. Looking for a wee bit more of that boldness of the Benromach character, maybe if I was to sip it in contrast with something else. Contrast, no pun intended. A tasty, solid, good, robust whiskey. Just out the neck of the bottle, not having much of a chance to express or stretch or relax before I'm sipping it. But tonight, I think that out of all the contrast ranges I've had, organic and all over the place with that wonderful, wonderful range, I think this is probably the most kind of just straight down the line. Maybe not enough of the Benromach identity in the first pour from the bottle tonight. Still glad to have it. Didn't pay a lot for it. 55 quid, I think. So whether you want to put one of the other contrast ranges in there, the sherry cask, the peat smoke, whatever it might be, the Caragold barley variety, one of the kiln dried series, one of the other kind of experimental things, or you want to just stick with a rock solid recommendation that is the cask strength, then we have to have a Benromach in the lineup. What's another distillery that's just come out of my mouth that should absolutely be in the lineup someplace tonight? Something deserves to be there. A geek pleaser distillery that was once a nothing distillery but then became such a fantastic distillery. How about something with an 18-year-old age statement that is much, much, much more affordable than the other 18-year-old, 17-year-old age statements we've shared tonight? How about Deanston at 46.3% as well, fully ex-bourbon matured as well? Sometimes in the past this has been finished in first fill, but I think these days in more modern contemporary times it's a kind of vatting between first fill and refill. The messaging on the bottles changed a wee bit, but this is 18 years old, 46.3% ABV, as I say. I picked this up for a bargain, I really did. But you can pick this up today, 18-year-old single malt Scotch whisky, 85 quid. Geek pleasing, a treat, a wonderful kind of indulgent thing to have in 2025, an 18-year-old age statement single malt for 85 quid, sometimes a wee bit less if you're on it and you know where the offers are going to come up, maybe depending on your market where you are, cheaper still. Deanston has been one of my favourite distilleries on this channel over the 8 years that this channel has existed, and that hasn't changed in recent times when there's so much more for me to be distracted by. It is still a rock solid malt. It's a wonderful spirit. It suffers from batch variation. It's almost like they embrace it. Roll with it. Look on the shelf how different batches of the same core range product are different colors. Celebrate it. Tell them that you love that. Tell them that it's testimony to the fact that they are approaching their product with a natural sensibility. Sorry, this is my list, and it has to have a Deanston in it. One more to go, and it's the last whiskey of tonight. I promise you, I've cleared a lot of bottles tonight. 3 lists. Justin Wan is saying if you visit Deanston anytime soon, there's an 18-year-old fourth fill on offer. I think it will be right up my alley. That's amazing. Youthfulness crossed over with maturity. I can absolutely imagine it. Justin, that would be amazing. It's almost worth going up there alone for that. Hoyt is saying, I know I go on about this, but I wish Deanston would do a cognac finish 18 again. I think that there's a good chance that they might. DVDW, that's Dan, I think, saying definitely picking the cask strength Benromach over the contrasts any day. That's fine. What I did tonight is I picked the cask strength, but I also had a new contrast that I wanted to open. But absolutely, Dan, you and I agree that cask strength stands. That's more like creme brulee, says Harrow. And Andrew Pierce is saying the new high enzyme is interesting. It's fairly subtle and not your typical Benromach, but I'm enjoying it. See, these contrast series, not only does it betray what they're thinking about internally and what they're doing and the fact that they're whiskey lovers that's making the product, but it brings us this lovely, lovely, lovely geekery for us to pick up. It's wonderful, and it needs to be embraced and shouted about and encouraged from other quarters too. Let's finish on a banger. Let's finish on the bottle that it's an islands, it has to be from the islands. I would not be allowed to go and rest tonight if I didn't finish on this particular bottle. Let's see, Justin Wan, if you can pick this and get a 3 out of 3 tonight. He's done quite well in picking what I've been putting forward already. He obviously knows me. Sometimes I worry that you guys know me more than I know myself. RN18, pressure on lol. Okay. I did go with an Arran product with a lag. I've not gone with an Arran product here. Here's the reason. RN18 was an easy one for me. RN18 used to be regularly 80, 90, 95 pounds. Then they brought out a 17-year-old and it shot up to 115. Big jump in price. And then the 18-year-old came back when the stock caught up and it shot up in price again. I have the 17-year-old and the 18-year-old on the shelf right now and I love them every bit as much as I once did. But there's a producer out there that's bringing a product that is absolutely, unquestionably just as good quality as it has been in recent years, and the price is still holding. It's rising, but it's just about holding. It's been my whiskey of the year in the past, and I still absolutely adore Tobermory's Leitchick 18-year-old. Again, typical from the range. So we've got, the only thing that's missing from all of this tonight is Isla's Bunnahabhain. From the CVH range, we've got Tobermory at 46.3. Sorry, it's actually a cast strength one at 55 plus. We've got Deanston's 18 at 46.3. We've got Leitchick 18 at 46.3 in the lineup tonight. This whiskey, and now that I've been to the distillery to kind of just help reinforce that belief in it, and to taste some of the really, really much older liquid, it is just, I'm just so grateful that it's been revived, that it's sympathetically been handled and treated properly these days. There was a time that something with Leitchick on the label was something to be very wary of, an absolute try before you buy. In 2025, Leitchick is now up there. It's a beautiful, robust, flexible whiskey, whether it's the unpeated Tobermory branding or whether it's the Leitchick peated branding. This might not be around forever at this price point and this quality, but it's 2025 and we have it today. I'm glad that we had a lineup tonight that we could include this again. Tobermory's already appeared, and it was really interchangeable between the two. That wee sherry cask one that opened tonight's a cracker. It's a bit more expensive than the 18 peated version, but that's large scale release. The 17-year-old is a much smaller, fully Oloroso matured sherry release. The 18-year-old is a vatting. It's delicious, delicious stuff. Justin Ran is saying, going to tap out before the quiz. Got work to do on a Friday, haven't you, Justin, in Hong Kong? He's saying, thanks for indulging my guesses tonight. I think I've done quite well. As such, I'll convince myself that I've done well in the quiz as well. Good night all. Justin, come back and do the quiz on the replay and share in the comments underneath how you've actually done. If I give you a wee thumbs up on that generous dram, buddy, raise this wee glass and say thank you very, very much for your support and everything, Justin. Cheers to you. Let's summarise quickly. This is my list. Do the same as we did for the other lists. I'll tell you the prices. Kilkerran 8-year-old, £68, £67.50 in truth. Some places you're seeing it at 65, some places 68, 69. Of that order, Ardnamurchan £55, Core Range Infinite Lock, Lag Comori, £48 typically. Benromach cast strength, £72. It's crept up a wee bit in price. We need to keep an eye on that. We need to keep them honest. You know, we can't have it getting much out of hand, but still, you know, £72 for Benromach cast strength. Well, we're getting 8-year-old Kilkerran cast strength that's also jumped up in price at 68. Benromach, don't get carried away, please. Deanston 18, still super honest at £85. In Leitchick, some places still under 100, some places over 100 now. So we've got an average retail right now in the market of £100 for Leitchick 18 in the UK, giving us a total of 428 for Roy's list, giving us an average geek bottle price for tonight's vPub of £71. I put it to you that I think I've done quite well here. We were at £57 for when we really tried to dial in the cheap prices. £115 for the really indulgent wish list, dream list stuff. I'd have been happy to be somewhere in between the two, but I've worked out only £14 higher than the cheap stuff per bottle. However, in summary, I want to say this. Back in 2005, when I started drinking whiskey, and my average bottle price was 19 or £20, maybe a wee bit higher than that, because I did treat myself from time to time on things that were 30 or £40. Okay, a wee bit higher. I could not have imagined a time where I would be sitting here talking about an average bottle price of £57, of £71, of £115. Whiskey is an expensive thing. We need to justify it. We can't be led by stories and nonsense and brands and loyalty to brands. We leave ourselves wide open to being taken advantage of. What we need to do is ground ourselves, recognize what our biases are, what things that we feel are our favourites. My love for the Deanstons or the Kilkerrans or whatever it may be. Ardnamurchan, Ardnaho. I know that I'm a sucker for those things. So we need to work harder to keep them honest. Try and stay objective. It's okay for us to feel a bit tenderized and to spend 57, 71, 115 pounds on whiskey. It's okay. We're mortal. We need to know what it is to be alive. And this is one of the things that makes us enjoy that. But awareness is a big deal. There was a time when we were happy spending 25, 30 pounds. Now we're spending 45, 50, 57 pounds. Sometimes treating ourselves with 100, 115 pounds. And we just, I love it, but I'm a geek, I'm an enthusiast. It's still only whiskey. And especially for the high-end stuff, there's a lot of attraction in the high volume, razor thin, zero margin stuff, because as long as the volume's going through, they're keeping people in jobs, and then they try and make money back on the higher stuff, the higher ABV, the older stuff, the special edition things. There has to be a bit of balance, I think. We've fallen. We are geeks. We're hapless. We've just... Sometimes that encourages us to spend a wee bit too much, I think. Some of the whiskies I shared with you in my first list tonight, the dream list, the wish list, are absolutely worth it. But don't find yourselves falling for loyalty, brand loyalty. Don't feel that you have to justify spending £100 on a bottle that doesn't live up to it. Don't rave about it. Say this isn't really worth £100. Say that it let you down a bit. Keep everything honest. I think any of us could make a list out of these lists tonight, and they're all interchangeable, and you can add and delete your own things. Look at what you're spending. Look at what's being asked of you to go and replace that bottle afterwards again. I guarantee you it's just inevitably going to be a bit more than the last time. So are you at least getting the same amount of engagement and quality, or is it time to switch it up and try something else? Awareness, in summary, awareness is always the first step. I'm sitting in front of you tonight admitting that some of my purchases easily, comfortably average £115 a bottle. I am an enthusiast. I am a geek. I'm a botherer. And I suffer. Very generous dram come in from Ted Brooks. He's saying, love this community. Cheers, Roy. Keep up the good work. Well, if you think this is good work, Ted, I'll say thank you very, very much. I love you for it, buddy. But people like you make it very, very easy for me. Thank you. Ted, that's a very, very generous dram. Thank you, my friend. Cheers, Ted Brooks. Lowlander is saying, thanks for the stream. It's late. I've got to go, hopefully. Well, I'm clocking on I'm going to hit over 3 hours tonight. I knew I would, because I'm going to be sharing with you a minimum of 18 bottles, and it ended up being in excess of 20. Ben is saying, right, come on, quiz. I'm knackered. And Hoyt is saying, good advice. I've been extremely selective now. Mistakes are costly. Admit your mistakes. Own up to them. Peter Lee is saying, cheers to Ted Brooks as well. That's very nice of you, Peter. Thank you. Yes, we do have a quiz at the end for everybody that's waited till the end. Thank you so much. We see the numbers dive right down, but that's okay. People pick it up in the replay, and it's nice just to be able to hang out and always finish off. I dread to think what would happen if I didn't finish with a quiz at the end. Let's collapse all of these wee overlays. Let's go to the assets that we need for the quiz at the end, which are here. 27th of February already. Can you imagine? My goodness. Last day in February tomorrow, then we're into March. I'll see you at the Fife Festival this weekend, potentially. I hope so. I hope to bump into you. If you see me there, please come over and say hello. It would be nice to shake your hand. And if I don't see you there, in 2 weeks' time, 2 weeks on Saturday, I might see you at the Indie Festival in Leith. Good luck, everyone. It's multiple choice as always. Please stay and play along. If you're struggling, lean on the crowd. Try a guess. Question 1. Which of these distilleries is owned by Chivas Brothers? I'm going to give you 3 distilleries, and I want you to tell me which is owned by Chivas Brothers, which is also, of course, Pernod Ricard. A. Altovania, B. Aberlour, or C. Aberfeldy. Looking for the Chivas-owned distillery. Kyle Taylor is in. First time I've mentioned you tonight, Kyle. Good to have you, buddy. Bob Wenting? Bob, is that the first time I've welcomed you here, buddy? Good to have you. Pedro from Brazil is in, suggesting it's A and B. Jens is playing along, saying A. Richard Beck, that looks like a new name as well, Richard. Good to have you in. Joe Smith is here. He's suggesting C. Kyle Taylor is saying, sorry, B. Jimmy Jazz is in saying B. Jimmy, so good to still have you here hanging out. Falsgraph. Michael C. 2019 is here saying B. Okay, Peter Lee is saying A. Danny Hebbington, Ginger Genius John both saying B. Seb K saying A. Jerry Miller saying A and B. We're looking for a Pernod Ricard Chivas Brother distillery. I can tell you that, knowledgeable whiskey folk that you are, C. Aberfeldy is owned by Dewar's, and actually Aberfeldy is, of course, the home of Dewar's. Altovania is a Chivas Brother distillery, along with Aberlour is also the same. So tonight, it wasn't going to be a freebie tonight. You did have to put a wee bit of effort in. So 66% chance, I suppose, of getting it right. Question 2. Which of these Islay distilleries closed its malt floors before closing its doors in the 1980s, only to close its doors again in the 1990s? So this was really, really difficult times. Through the challenges for efficiency, the malt floors disappeared. Then in the 1980s, challenges of the market, it closes, but it opens again, and then it has to close again in the 1990s. This is an Islay distilleries at A. Bruichladdich, B. Ardbeg, or C. Lagavulin. Which of these Islay distilleries closed its malt floors, then had to close it up altogether in the 80s, only to reopen again and then have to close all over again in the 1990s? A's, B's, A's, B's, C's. Definitely not C, says Hoyt. Definitely not C, says Hoyt. Ted Brooks, Pete Head, Pedro, MG Rodden, good to see you in. Ginger Genius, Jimmy Jazz, all saying A. Timothy T. Thomas, that definitely looks like a new name to me, is going for his B, along with Ben Demon Hunter also thinks it's B. 1 or 2 others also going with a B. Jerry Miller. Good to see the variation. Vasil is here. Good to see you, Vasil. Whiskey Weekend Drama is going for a B. Okay, I can tell you that the distillery that lost its malt floors first, then closed its doors in the 80s and also the 1990s, was both Bruichladdich and Ardbeg. Bruichladdich lost its malt floors in the 1960s, closed in the 80s, opened again, closed in the 90s. Then, of course, it was a Renaissance story back in, just the turn of the century, right? A similar story for Ardbeg, maybe a year or 2 earlier for its Renaissance, but it's closed its malt floors in the mid-70s before it shut in the 80s, opened from time to time again, occasional production before closing again, only to be revived in the 1990s. So I didn't give you a freebie at the start, but I gave you 66% chances to start tonight. So let's move on to question 3. Which of these three is the oldest LVMH distillery by LVMH? I'm speaking about the luxury brand. I'm talking about Louis Vuitton, Moet Hennessy. Luxury branding territory here. Which of these three distilleries is the oldest? A. Ardbeg, B. Glenturret, or C. Glenmorangie? Which of these three LVMH distilleries is the oldest? Hopefully these things feel easy and they get a wee bit trickier as the night goes on. There maybe should be a banana skin here, Timothy T. Thomas. Should be a wee banana skin, just putting a warning up to some folk. Some people are falling for it. Which of these three is the oldest LVMH distillery? Don't think that Graham Fraser is in tonight, so we don't have the leader for everyone to potentially follow, so we could see some attrition this evening. You never know, but Ben Whisky with Molly is here. Hellswood is still in here playing along. So the people that tend to get pretty strong scores, Daisy Vleeland is here. She's always good for a high score. Sid Martin is in. Good to see you, Sid. Mentioned you earlier tonight. Held up your local barley that you picked me up last year, buddy. It's great to have you. And Daniel Williams is going for an A. Bruce Bernard. Pedro is saying, do you mean the oldest by founding date? Yes, I absolutely do. That's exactly what I mean. I can put you out your misery now. Ardbeg is owned by Louis Vuitton Moet Hennessy. Glenturret is owned by Lalique, not LVMH. And Glenmorangie is owned by Louis Vuitton Moet Hennessy. Glenmorangie is 1846. 46? Is that right? 36. Ardbeg is 1815. Ardbeg is the oldest LVMH distillery. The banana skin there was Glenturret, which is an 18th century distillery, but it's not owned by LVMH. Sorry if you slipped up on the banana skin there. I maybe should have had that wee banana skin in. As we roll into question 4, which of these distilleries was regularly the most visited in Scotland pre-COVID? Now, it might be, once more, one of the most regularly visited distilleries in Scotland again. But I'm talking about this was something that happened pre-COVID. It was quite striking. A, Lochranza, B, Glengoyne, C, Glenkinchie. Which of those three distilleries was typically, very often, the most visited in Scotland before the pandemic years? 1843, Glenmorangie. Thank you very much, buddy. Thank you, Ben. Ooh, this is an easier one for most. Daisy, Jerry, Ian, Julian, Sid, James, Michael. Graham Fraser is here. He is in tonight. Of course he is. Sorry, Graham, I never spotted you, buddy. Danny Hevington, Dave the Brave. Everybody getting this. Let's not dwell. Easy peasy for you. It's difficult to pull the wool over your eyes, despite the accessibility of Glengoyne and Glenkinchie, even Glenkinchie running a free bus. Isle of Arran's Lochranza distillery, the Isle of Arran distillery, managed to regularly top the visitors' charts for footfall in a distillery. And I guess that's once you're on the island and there's a distillery there and you're up at Lochranza, you're probably not going to walk past it. You're going to go in. Huge numbers of visitors up at Lochranza. Question 5 is the picture question. There is a distillery in the distance. I really don't know if you're going to be able to make it out. It's just a tiny, tiny, tiny wee picture in the distance there. There is a distillery there. I'm just going to ask you, where are we? Not going to ask you for the distillery. Are we in A, Speyside? Are we B, on Islay? Or are we C, in the Scottish Highlands? Where are we? Speyside, Islay, or Highlands? Molasses captive audience suggesting. I think that's pretty much what I was saying there, Mike. Yeah. Daniel Williams is spot on. Daniel Williams has nailed it. Scotland. Jens Roger Christofferson is, oops, I won't say that out loud. Mike is saying Young Williams is having a laugh. Hellswood's saying, walked along there more than once, says Helen. Whiskey with Molly's nailed it. Everybody nailing this. The penny drops. Now, I wonder if they're going to have to rename this particular path. That's a great walk, says Pedro. Yes, I've walked it once one way and we took a bus back. I've cycled it. I've never walked and back again. So that's a clue for everyone. This is the 3 distilleries path that takes you from Port Ellen on Islay, the Kildalton coast, all the way out to Ardbeg. In the distillery, you can just see, I don't know how good your screen is, but in the distance, you can see the twin pagodas of Ardbeg in the distance. You can walk it out and take the bus back. We got caught in the rain when we walked it and we took the bus back. Fantastic thing. So cool that it's there. The traffic can belt along at its full speed and you can be quite happy on the cycle path or the walking path to the left-hand side there. We're definitely on Islay's Kildalton coast. So B was the right one. Question 6, news this week of a brand new Oloroso matured release at 50% ABV is from which of these distilleries? A wee Dramface icon there. The news went out on Dramface this week. A, Ardnamurchan, B, Ardbeg, C, Ardnahoe. It's a brand new release, 50% ABV, Oloroso matured, exclusively Oloroso matured. This is a core range. This is a core range release as well. Ardnamurchan, Ardbeg, Ardnahoe. Such knowledgeable folk cannot pull the wool over your eyes, and I suspect it's not just because you're reading Dramface, although I hope you all do. It'd be wonderful to have you there and join in the individual opinion of all the different writers that we have. Quite a spectrum of different takes on whiskey. 5 out of 5, a pass being celebrated by Blackfen. That'll do for tonight because it's been a long day, night all. He's nailed his pass. He's given himself a night off. Fantastic, Conrad. So nice to have you in, buddy. Vasile is saying C for Ardnahoe, and Vasile along with most of your peers and patriots. Spot on. Ardnahoe. 50% ABV, fully Oloroso matured, core range, 60 quid we believe the retail is. It'd be nice to see that that's the case when it hits the shelf. It's only a 5 or more than the Infinite Loch. Keen to get a wee shot of that and see if it's closer to the inaugural, the Society releases as well. Just fantastic stuff. So that's the 2 core ranges that they'll have out Ardnahoe. Question 7. Oh, there's a wee picture. I've included a wee picture from the press release for it there as well. Somebody's went and got their feet wet taking that one. Question 7. Which of these once upon a time Diageo distilleries was once also a 15-year-old Flora and Fauna release? 3 distilleries are about to pop up. We're looking for a once upon a time Diageo owned distillery that also had a 15-year-old Flora and Fauna. It's getting trickier now. A, Aberfeldy, B, Altmore, C, Thrusk. Which of those 3 distilleries once had a 15-year-old Flora and Fauna? This is when things start to get challenging. Lots of you are on 5 and 6 out of 6. Good, high, strong scores. And then as the last few questions get tougher and tougher. Let's just look at you. So knowledgeable. My goodness. The other Roy, that's Roy Ovimere. Good to see you in, Roy. If anyone has a spare £500, I'd buy a bottle. Kyle Taylor says, we're of course talking about the 15-year-old Flora and Fauna, Aberfeldy. A Thrusk has a 10-year-old still available from Flora and Fauna today through Flora and Fauna. Altmore, I believe, also now owned by Dewars, same as Aberfeldy. I think Altmore back in the day was a 12-year-old. Well done, everyone. Lots and lots and lots of you enjoying your 7 out of 7. It's going to be tough to challenge you this evening. Let's see how we do. Question 8 as things get tougher. Which of the following new distilleries can produce up to 1 million litres per annum? I'm going to give you 3 new distilleries, and I want you to tell me which one of them is the biggest, essentially. Which one can produce up to 1 million litres? A, Ballindalach in Speyside. B, Ardross in the Highlands. Or C, Clydeside in the Lowlands. Which of those 3 can produce up to 1 million litres? Bob Wenting, absolutely spot on with your answer. It's not an option though, Bob, but you're spot on, buddy. Balmod is a huge project. Richard Beck saying A. Jerry Miller saying B. And Joe Smith saying C. Wow. This is where we start to see the attrition kicking in a little bit. Whisky with Molly suggesting that Ardnamurchan is about 1 million too. Ardnamurchan are not quite there yet. I think they might have a bit of a bottleneck with the mash tun. Certainly their fermentation room, I think that might hold them up. I don't know if 1 million can be achieved. Lots of people now settling on B for Ardross. I can tell you that Ballindalach is pretty small, about 100,000 litres. It's not Ballindalach. Ardross is pretty big. Clydeside is also pretty big. Clydeside is about 500,000, 600,000, 700,000, but it is, of course, Ardross. Pretty big concern up there in Allness, pretty close to Dalmore, Enoch, a lot of other distilleries. A wee concentration of distilleries up there at that neck of the woods, but they're pretty big concern. They're going to hang on to their spirit for a while. It's going to be a wee bit yet before we can see Ardross. They're currently clocking about 5 or 6 years in terms of production. A is small but great. Visit, says Harrow about Ballindalach. Yes, absolutely. I've had a couple of crackers from Ballindalach. Some lot of 8 out of 8s from Dave the Brave, Gino Cumeau. Gino's on an 8. Daisy is on an 8. Falscraft is on an 8. But his inner chimpanzee is scoring a mere 3. Graham Fraser is on an 8. Ardross sounds like E150A area. Oh, because it's in Allness near Dalmore. Don't worry about that. I'm sure Ardross will not go in that direction. Okay, question 9. We have a few Scotch malt distilleries which begin with Ben, but how many do we have that begin with Ard today? By today, I mean 2025. So we know the Bens, right? How many Bens do we have? How many Ards do we have? A, we have fewer Ards than Bens. B, we have the same Ards as Bens. C, we have more Ards than Bens. How many begin with Ard? Fewer than Bens, the same as Bens, more than Bens. So those of you that have noticed already, this is an asshat for question 9. You need to know, Danny Hebbington is calling it out. He's absolutely right. You need to know the answer to 2 things in order to get this right. You need to navigate this one. The asshat at the end is still absolutely an asshat, but we've got a wee extra layer of difficulty. How many Bens are there? How many Ards are there? And which is the most? A, there are fewer Ards than Bens. B, there are the same number of Ards as Bens. C, there are more Ards than Bens. Guessing here. Love the question, says Bob. Thank you, Bob. Thank you for guessing. Thanks for playing along. P. Ed is saying it's an under Ben or an over Ben. That's exactly right. Let's not talk about what we're doing to Ben. I'm just grateful he's still here. And Ben is saying Ben should really get this. Okay. I can tell you that there are 4 Bens and 5 Ards. So the answer was C. more than Bens. There are 5 Ards, so there are Ardross, Ardnamurchan, Ardbeg, Ardnahoe, that's 4, Ardmore. There you go, 5 Ards. Ben is Benriach, Benrinnes, Ben Nevis, and I can't remember the other Ben now. Benromach, Benrinnes, Benriach, and Ben Nevis. That's 4. Hopefully I've got them. Benbecula. Oh, says Dave the Brave. Oh my goodness, he's absolutely right. Let me have a wee look at this. He's just called out a potential banana skin for me, but is it going to be called Benbecula? Are they calling it that? It's not in the Malt Whisky Yearbook yet. It's not in the micro distillery section yet either. I think they've got another name for it too. Benbecula, it is absolutely a distillery. So again, as Dave the Brave has called out, if you wanted to call a bogey on that question, you could absolutely take it. As you know, I tend to go on the Malt Whisky Yearbook, so it can be easy for me to miss out on things that are not mentioned there. Benbecula is a legitimate distillery. So it is a Ben, which means that there are the same amount of Ards as Bens. Okay, we go into the ass hat at the end. Thank you, David Brave. Thanks for that. John is saying, Ginger Genius, Ben's just bent me over. Okay, ass hat at the end. Good luck, everyone. Let's see how the scores are. Ian Bruce on a 9 out of 9. Tobias, good to see you, Tobias. 9 out of 9. I'm taking it, says Dave the Brave. 9 out of 9. Good for you, buddy. Take it. Especially if you've calculated it in your head and you're counting them up and you get the same amount, you absolutely should. 9 out of 9, says Falsgraf. Fantastic. Ian Bruce, 9 out of 9. Sid Martin, 9 out of 9. Whisky Weekend Dram, 11 out of 10. Fantastic. I'll have some of what you're drinking, Harrow, buddy. The other Roy Vermeer is on an 8 tonight. Kyle Taylor's taking a 7.5 out of 9. Sorry, but that is too close to a certain Transylvanian character for me. I wonder what you're talking about there, Daisy. Good to have you in at the quiz at the end. Well, I'll see you in Edinburgh. Well, I see you in no, maybe Limburg before I'll see you. Question 10. How many Scotch malt distilleries begin with the letter A? You might notice the theme, all of the vPubs for 2025, so far at least, they've all had a quiz at the end with a theme. Tonight's theme you might have picked out, might have helped you on a couple of the questions, was distilleries beginning with the letter A. How many distilleries begin with the letter A? About the same number as years of age stated on A, Lagavulin's youngest age-stated release. Or is it about the same number as years of age stated on B, Lagavulин's 1988 Classic Malts release? Or is it about the same number as years of age stated on C, Lagavulин's oldest official website listing? Their youngest age stated, their 1988 Classics age stated, or their oldest official website listing. How many distilleries begin with the letter A? This is the ass hat. This is designed to make it difficult for you to score 10 out of 10. I apologise, but not really, because I know that you all have a lot of fun with it. So you need to be on form. You need to know your stuff. You need to be playing with the crowd. You need to have a bit of luck and everything fall your way. The 10 out of 10 has to be something that is a genuine celebration. Whisky Weekend Drama is saying 1 and 1 is 11, Roy. Oh, I get it. Yes, I'll be there in Leith. Fantastic, Daisy. Wouldn't want to miss it. Wonderful stuff. There are a few characters out there in our community that's almost like, would it be a legitimate event if they weren't there? I'm thinking of Rolfie. I'm thinking of Royal Vermeer. I'm thinking of Daisy Vleeland. And it's amazing that a lot of these people I'm thinking about travel in from Europe to participate. It's just wonderful. It really is. Looking forward to seeing you, Daisy. Really am. B. Absolutely. Most of you saying B, with a 1 or 2 outliers potentially. Joe Smith is going along with Bob saying A, and Big Ed, good to see Big Ed, is saying A along with Sean Causer and Timothy T. Thomas. JG is going for a C, along with Jimmy Jazz is going for C as well. How many distilleries begin with A? Love it, love it, love it. I don't know if this helps you, but I can tell you that Lagavulin youngest age-stated release is an 8-year-old. It was mentioned tonight. The classic 1988 release. It was a 12-year-old older than that, but obviously it was 16 years in 1988. That's how long we've had the Lagavulin 16 since the 1988 Classic Malts release. And the oldest official website listing today, I think it's maybe sold out, but you can still pick it up for a bargain, 1,650 quid, is their 26-year-old. The number of distilleries beginning with the letter A. You've kicked it out of the park, Barflies. Amazing job. Is absolutely 16. C, I would list them off, but no need. You've done well. How many scraped through to a 10 out of 10 at the end? Ben, Whiskey with Molly. That's another 10, baby. I'm literally holding my eyes open and don't have the energy to even celebrate. Elsewhere is saying 10 out of 10. That's how much it means to you, Ben. Love you, man. Thank you for staying here to the end. Just how competitive a character. Wonderful. Hellswed is celebrating a 10 out of 10 as well. Well done, Helen. Well done to you too. Kyle Taylor, a 9.5. Kyle, that rounds up to a 10. Take the 10, celebrate it, enjoy it. Jerry Miller is saying, must have been an easy quiz. Jerry's also celebrating loads of 10 out of 10s tonight. Well, look at all these. Look at all these emoji. Grainer Malt James, 10 out of 10, celebrating. Fantastic. Julian Rickman, celebrating. Gino Kimo, celebrating. Daniel Williams in the Netherlands, celebrating. Nicholas, celebrating. Good to have you, Nicholas. Daisy is celebrating. Whoop, whoop. Ian Bruce, Sid Martin, both celebrating. Daniel's saying he's only second ever 10 out of 10. Must have made it a wee bit easier. Kyle Taylor saying, cheers to the 10 out of 10. He's taking it to the bank. Well done, you. Daniel Williams is congratulating all the other 10 out of 10s. And Julian Rickman is celebrating his first 10 out of 10. Let's raise a wee glass to Julian. Superb. Well, Ben is also calling for me, everyone. Wonderful stuff. Well, I told you it was going to be a bottle storm tonight. What I wanted to focus on was that thing that draws us as enthusiasts and geeks. And what does that mean? What does that inevitably mean to us? We're going to end up paying a lot more whiskey. So we need to find a balance. We need to go with it and be drawn by whiskies, you know, all the things that it offers us. We need to be ready to pay a bit more for the stuff that's really good. We do. But we also need to be aware that we're paying a lot and find where the value lies. And throughout that tonight, through looking at the stuff we love, through finding the stuff that's great value, we find the middle ground. And the middle ground tonight was my own personal list. And I trust that all of you have got your own personal list as well. We work together as a community to find out where the value is. And I'd raise a glass to that every day of the week. Let's raise a glass of one of the wee stars that I found tonight, that lovely Tobermory. A lovely, rich. I said there wasn't much sulphur, but there's maybe a wee touch just based on the other whiskies I've been having tonight. A wee bit of that sherry cask, kind of slightly savoury, salty matchstick type thing. Maybe just a tiny wee bit. Anyway, it's still delicious. Listen, thanks to all of you. Gino Kumo is saying, thanks for another great relaxing vPub, man. This does not get old. Just love it. Have a great weekend, buddy. Thank you, Gino. I'm amazed that it doesn't get old to you. And with that 10 out of 10, I'm calling it a day, says Frank P. Head. I'm going to hit the sack. I'll sleep with a smile. Thanks for organising Aquaviti, and to all of you. See you next time. Slanchava, and sleep. Sweet dreams to you as well, Frank. Michael 2019 is saying, thank you for another great evening. Thank you for being here, Michael. Wonderful stuff. And Graham Fraser is saying, Night Roy and Barfly. See some of you in Fife at the weekend. I look forward to it, Graham. And David Brave is saying, very glad. Very great and long night. 2 a.m. here. Times goes fast with such a nice theme. Thank you, Dave, for your indulgence. And John is saying, great vPub as usual. Cheers, Roy. And a dram coming in despite them being absolutely knackered. Whiskey with Molly buys me a dram. Congrats. £10 out of £10. Wonderful stuff, Ben. He's done it twice. I think he's made a wee mistake. You are tired, buddy. Go to bed. I'll buy you that dram back when I see you next. Let me raise this glass to all of you. Congratulations on your scores, whatever they were on the quiz at the end. Congratulations on being part of this community, because you're part of a community that work to help each other find the best in whiskey. The industry could do well to listen to some of you guys. You really do know what's going on. It's wonderful to see. It's wonderful to hang out with you. It's a privilege for me to do so every Thursday night. I'm going to raise this glass. Remind you all that you're very dearly loved. Wish you all the very best of health until I welcome you back here, I hope, the next Thursday night for another vPub session. And until then, Slanchova.